To this, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about yourself?
I am a speedrunner for Resident Evil 2. Not one of the top ones, but I do speedrun Resident Evil 2 Remake and 3 occasionally. I have been a Resident Evil fan ever since Director's Cut for 1, and I've been playing video games since the age of 2. So I've been gaming for a very long time.
Awesome, awesome. And what got you into the Resident Evil franchise?
What got me into it was an actual friend of mine had introduced me into the game back when the PlayStation 1 games were the size of Sega Saturn games. They were like a big booklet type of thing, and then
Yeah.
they moved it to like the small square one. So once I saw him play it, I was like, this game is scary. I like it. Let me get into this series. So he had got me into it.
Oh, really? And what would you say by far is your favorite Resident Evil?
My favorite Resident Evil probably has to be OG 2, Resident Evil 2, back in
Oh, man after
1990.
my own
Yeah,
heart.
yeah. The reason it being is that it had so much, and it was the first game I played that had 2 discs, and it was 2 different stories.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was actually more than two different stories, to be quite honest.
Yes, this is true, but like you could start on a different story of your choice instead of having to beat the game and then go through another route.
Yeah. And also, what I loved about because Resident Evil 2 OG is my favorite as well. Um, it was the whole story and the transition on how everything went, and then, like you said, it is one of the it was one of the first PlayStation Capcom games that you can actually finish one story and then you have to complete the other side B for the other character's story, so you get the whole transition of the story on what that character had to go through while the other character was going through a different thing.
Yes, and that was
And
a fantastic idea.
yeah, and it introduced my baby girl to Ada. Oh God, I love me some Ada. And on that note, it was like, well, we're gonna get into the other stuff because there's some other stuff I want to bring up.
Of
But
course.
yeah. So let's start off with the very very first Resident Evil. Let's see if anybody could guess what the very first Resident Evil was. And I'm going by timeline, not by the years that it came out. What was the very first Resident Evil in the timeline that came out?
Wouldn't it be 0?
Exactly.
Yeah, because
Resident
they
Evil Type
had.
Zero was the first one that, well, was the first Resident Evil of its timeline to come out.
Yes.
Um, and honestly, when Resident Evil Zero came out at that time, you know what? Let's get a nice little picture of Resident Evil Type Zero. Let me go right here real quick. Let's bring this out just so people know what we're talking about. Ah, no! What the heck did I just do? Oh no! Oh, we're gonna delete that. Delete. Yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna put this right there. This is the first timeline of its. I gotta switch my thing. Da, 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 da. There we go. Resident Evil Zero was the very first Resident Evil of the timeline. We're not saying it that it was first made. The first Resident Evil that was actually made was back in 96, 98, which was Resident Evil, aka Biohazard. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Resident Evil Zero and your thoughts?
To be honest with you, I didn't play much of it. I just did not like the way it played.
Well, that's where a lot of fans actually got the whole idea of it was that it was a different game. To be quite honest, it was not your
Oh, of
typical.
course.
Yeah, it was not your typical style of playing. I mean, yeah, they had the standstill camera in it and everything. And it was just I'm not gonna say it was bad, but I thought it was like a little interesting that you could switch beyond between the characters, have one character do the other thing, and then instead of the character just following you at whims and whimsicles of will, uh, they have to go do something else to complete that puzzle or complete that to the story.
So, yes.
But the control settings with it, that's what threw me off.
Yeah, that and its trading system, because that was the first game you can actually discard an item in your inventory and it would be on the ground instead of it being gone forever.
Yeah. Instead of like a Resident Evil Outbreak where they could just like hand it to you, be like, here you go, here you go.
Yes, and they actually had the glinting item in their hand.
Exactly. Um, and with that character Billy, I actually like Billy in that character as that character. It actually explained a little. He's not part of the Resident Evil, but it explained what type of character he was.
Yes.
I would love to see. I would love me to see some Billy, and then all of a sudden you had to fight the Leech Queen, which was supposedly a guy. I don't know how that came to be.
Well, there's another character down the storyline that we'll talk about as well.
Yeah. Now let's go to the one of our fan favorites, what started it all. Uh, First I have to back out of this. Let's go to because there's really not much to say about Resident Evil 8. It wasn't that great of a game. It was good, but it
You just said
wasn't.
8.
Yeah,
We were talking about 0. How do we go from 0 to 8?
I mean, is there? I'm talking. I'm sorry. Resident Evil, the regular OG.
Okay.
Yeah, OG.
Threw me off.
Yeah, I threw myself off too. I'm sorry. Okay, let's talk about Resident Evil right now. So what are your thoughts about the OG Resident Evil?
The OG Resident Evil, I actually enjoyed a lot of it. It was the fact that, again, you still had your two different characters, which you played as Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, and they both had their perks. I believe Chris had a knife, and Jill had the lockpick. And Jill was able to access a lot of other things Chris couldn't because he couldn't lockpick anything.
Correction. Chris had the lighter.
Oh, that's what it was, a lighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. He had the lighter and Jill had the lockpick. Their stories went differently a bit, not entirely like the next game we're gonna be mentioning soon. But what about the voice acting?
Oh, Class A voice acting. I don't care what anyone says. That game's voice acting was on point.
Funny as hell. To me, at that time, people could understand, like, it's what we have right now. It's not like the voice actors that we have right now. But back then, it's just like the script that was written up. It's like something that came out of an early '90s, late '80s horror movie. Like,
Yeah.
don't go through that door. But Chris is. Oh my god,
Yeah.
it was. But how did you enjoy the story?
I enjoyed it a lot. The creatures in that game I actually liked, to be honest with you, over the other games that came out in this series. And it was kind of disappointing to see them disappear over time. But I think out of the entire series, I think Resident Evil 1's Hunter creature was by far my favorite.
Oh yeah, of course. That aside from the Doberman dogs, I think that the hunter's another creature that actually scared the shit out of me. Practically more the dogs than the hunter because the dogs just pop out unexpectedly through a damn window.
Yeah, them and the crows.
Oh
Those are
yeah,
the two annoying small creatures uh, that would always give us jump scares back in the day that were annoying to deal with.
yeah. And do you know the whole history on how Resident Evil got its name?
I don't remember. It's been so long.
Well, if any of you that are watching this, how Resident Evil came to get its name, it's a very little interesting story. When Capcom first made the game, it was called Biohazard, and then they had an establishment in the U.S. and they were bringing that game over, but Japan did not want them to use the Biohazard name at the time, and the U.S. was a little had a little differences of using that name because they didn't want parents or people think that it was a plagueish game or whatnot, because Biohazard is like the plague and whatnot. So they had a little contest at the Capcom Industries, and all of a sudden there was this gentleman that won. I forget his name. I have the whole list right there, but he gave it its name Resident Evil because every Resident Evil game came to a residential area. So that's how it got its name, and because it's bad and everything, he just put evil at the title, and that's how that person won the contest in the Capcom Corporation. They they submitted that name, and Capcom fell in love with it. It was at first supposed to be called Dead Mansion, but the Capcom in Japan was already working on Biohazard 2 at the time, and they couldn't just call it Dead Mansion because it was going to be a franchise game because it was a huge hit. So that's how Resident Evil got its name. And come on, if you're a Resident Evil fan, who is the director of Resident Evil? Mercado?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Who is the director of Resident Evil?
Oh man, I can't pronounce his name.
Oh
my goodness.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, don't do this to me. Shinji Mikami.
Was it Shinji?
Yes, Shinji Mikami was the creator of Resident Evil.
Why did I blank out on that? I'm ashamed.
Don't worry, nobody's judging you. I hope
you are.
No, I'm not judging you. Why would I judge you?
I'm joking.
But yeah, Shinji Mikami, he is the godfather of horror. The one by far my favorite director for survival horror games is always going to be Shinji Mikami, due to the fact this man, whatever goes through this man's head is like just purely insane. Like at that time, and then when he came out with Resident Evil 2, it was just even much more of a phenomenal work. Speaking of Resident Evil 2, is there any other concepts you want to add into the Resident Evil?
No. Then this isn't what we're also going to be talking about for the reboot, are we? Or are we going to go with the OG?
Well, we're going to go with the OG, and we're going to go with the reboot as well.
Okay. All right, so then we'll wait until the
we're going to go to the reboot right now. I want to make it consistent.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll wait. I'll go into the next one because I was going to talk about the changes.
And now we're going to go into the reboot of Resident Evil. Let me get a... no. I don't know why my computer's acting so slow. There we go. Let's go with the Resident Evil reboot now. What are your thoughts, and how did you come across the game, the story, and what was different between the voice acting here and the script writing compared to the OG?
Well, they've already had... Well, first off, how I got into it was I already owned a GameCube and had already been a fan of the series. And once they had announced it, I believe I remember seeing it in a Nintendo Power magazine. Nintendo Power no longer exists, unfortunately. And I saw it and I was like, all right, great. I'm ready to play this game. I haven't played the original one because at the time I had... I didn't trade it in. I just misplaced the game and I haven't seen it since. And I was like, all right, cool. I can get into this game again and relive Resident Evil 1. But reading the article on it, they were talking about how they had upgraded the game graphic-wise, and voice acting wise. So they've already had the other. I think they had 3 other games prior. I think there was like a spin-off in between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But when Remake 1 came out, I believe it was a cover of Jill being attacked by a zombie. The graphics on the cover and seeing it on the back, seeing what I was about to get myself into, I knew I was going to be in for a fantastic ride. They had made the changes to a few of the enemies, a little bit of the mansion layout, so you couldn't be like, all right, it's a remake, an HD remake, follow the same path.
Yeah.
No. The fact that they took the time to redo all of that and give us, which I think was a little more in depth and better detailed story, I just can't get enough of it. I actually was shocked at the fact that they decided to add, what was her name? Oh my goodness.
That's the image that that M3rcad0 is talking about.
Oh my god, you know who I'm talking about though, right? The chained chick.
Lisa.
It was Lisa?
Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say Lisa, but I wasn't too sure if it was because of
It was Lisa.
Okay. So yeah, they added her and she had a background story that wasn't in the original, and just learning and dealing with her gave the game even more of a horror aspect than the original. Don't get me wrong, the original had its jump scares, but this character scared me the most.
Yeah, this character, like, after she bonks you on the head, like bonk, right
Yes.
in the shack and shed. Let me tell you, they added more to this game, and honestly, Sarah Cahill that actually played the voice of no, it was a Sarah Cahill. I am so sorry. She played the voice of Ada. The first Ada. Oh my God, I'm blanking out. Now I know. Now I know how you feel. Well, she actually did an amazing job playing as Jill Valentine. I can't remember the name. Just give me a minute. And I'm actually following her. That's the bad thing. That's the
Hey,
funny
man.
thing. Yeah, I know. I
It's
know. I'm
usually what
horrible.
happens when you're on the spot. Things they
Yeah,
disappear.
I'm sorry. It's not my fault. Hold on. I'll say it right now. If my phone ever loads fast enough.
Oh, this game they had introduced the counter ability to where if you had a knife, it wasn't a knife that would stay with you forever. As you see in
Heidi
this
Swan.
picture,
I'm sorry. Heidi Swan.
Heidi Swan,
Heidi
nice.
Swan did the voice of Jill Valentine in this.
I bet I did not know. Yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah.
But as I was saying before, as you can see in this scene, you would see this a lot when you're being attacked, and they had implemented a counterattack. So if you would have this knife, you were able to stick the zombie and be able to get away instead of continuously being bitten,
Yeah.
as you were able to in the original game.
They actually had it with the taser as well, and I believe the
Yep.
flashbang, or was it the grenade? I think it was both.
I think it was both.
Yeah. And then on this one, this is when they got this first introduction of the Crimson Zombie.
Yes, they did. They did
Those,
introduce the Crimson Zombie.
yeah, those mother lovers are just like, let's see if I could get a picture here of the Crimson Zombie.
And to different the original zombies to the upgraded Crimson is because they did have a crimson tint to them, and they actually had like a few more inches on their nails.
Yeah. And they could take more hits than the average zombie, and they're a lot faster. They
Yes.
like sprint after you. And the one thing about them is like with the Resident Evil reboot, which I actually found more challenging as compared to the OG. I found it more challenging because these zombies, they just don't disappear unless you blow their heads off.
Or
But
you set them on fire.
You have to set them on fire. You have to collect matches and drop a match and collect fuel, douse them with fuel, and then drop the match and burn crispy burn. But yeah, aside from that note, was just Resident Evil. I think this was like, we're gonna get into the others, but this is by far one of my favorite remakes of any of the out of any of the reboots and remakes that they made. This was by far one of my favorites because it had more. It had straight just set camera angles. Like you don't have to fucking move the cameras and everything. And they added more to the story and still kept the story as well, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And the storyline, the voice actors, they were just like very very good. I commendedly give this game an overall straight 10 basically. This is by far one of my favorite remakes ever.
No, I agree with you on that. This is the best remake out of the ones that have come out so far.
Yeah.
This is the top one out of the remakes.
Now, let's go into moving on.
It'll probably give you the remake. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it gave me a bunch of the remakes. Oh my god.
I saw the
There.
cover for the original one up top.
Uh, we'll just go with this one. But I like the game.
Yeah, it's down a little bit. It's not completely black, but it has the white bar that he's peering over.
Right bar.
Next to where the picture with the guy with the bandana, go up a little bit, and it's like on the left-hand side of the page.
Oh, there it is. All right, let's go with this one. Resident Evil 2 for the original, the OG, original gangster, we're gonna call it. So, now, fun tip. Well, actually, yeah, this had a game that was debuted. There was a game that debuted Resident Evil 2. No. Yeah, there was a Resident Evil 2 game that was debuting a certain game. Let's see if the chat could either find out what it was. If not, then we'll get into that. So, what are your thoughts about basically this is both our favorite Resident Evil 2 OG classic, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how does this game fits to being your favorite?
Well, after playing 1 and then going into 2, you were no longer stuck inside of a mansion. You're going around the city at first and then into a police department, which gave you more of an open world feel to it. Not so much, but you were able to see more of the world of Resident Evil and what happened after Alpha Team was there. This game was introducing 2 new characters that we haven't seen and how ironically they bump into each other as one character is related to someone in the previous game and one is a completely new character who's working for the police department. The fact that they were able to coincidentally bump into each other and start this partnership and be able to keep it throughout the entire game was definitely a fantastic storyline.
Yeah. And the characters that he's actually talking about is he is a rookie just starting out his first day on the job, and all of a sudden he's welcome with open arms with chaos and havoc of zombies. And that rookie cop, his name is Leon S. Kennedy, and the young lady that Mercado was mentioning is Claire Redfield, basically the sister of Chris Redfield in the first game.
Yes.
She went into town to look for her brother into Raccoon City, and then all of a sudden she goes to a diner. She walks around the counter telling this guy, "Hey, excuse me, sir," and my man just he's just enjoying this man meal that he has on the floor, And then all of a sudden, how they run into each other, she runs out of the diner right through the back door, and bam, Leon got a gun pointed at her, tells her to duck, and bam, bullet, one blast to the head. And what I love about this concept is like the situation had spread from the mansion, from the Umbrella Mansion, which was owned by none other than Oswald E. Spencer,
Yes.
and it had spread it. They could not contain it, even though that they had destroyed Chris and Jill, Brad Vickers, and oh my god, I can't remember the other guy. Brad was in the chopper. He came and got them out. But oh my god, what was his name? The guy that Jill rolls with, and he almost betrayed you with Wesker.
Oh, Barry Burton.
Barry Burton. There you go. With Barry Burton, and known for that. Coming from an OG, what was the most famous quote out of the OG Resident Evil?
Oh, so the scene where you pull a shotgun off a wall as Jill runs into this room and the ceiling starts to collapse and she's banging on the door asking for help. Ironically, her partner Barry's on the other side and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll get you out." Gets her out, and as soon as she gets out, she's like, "Oh, thanks, Barry, you saved my life." And he goes, "Ha, yeah, you were almost a Jill sandwich there."
And ironically enough, there are some sub places that actually has a thing called the Jill sandwich. I haven't tried it yet, but there is something. It is out there. If you run into a deli shop and you see something that says Jill sandwich, try it out. It's in reference to Resident Evil. And all of a sudden, one of my favorite parts from Barry Burton at that time was just like, "But what are you gonna use?" "I have this." And he pulled out a big ass fucking Magnum. That shit was funny. So
It was funny.
yeah. So we're going back into Resident Evil 2 now, how it just, transpired. Now, in Resident Evil 1, which we forgot to cover this, it all started off with a virus called the T virus. In Resident Evil 2, it's a whole lot different. This is the G virus. Basically, the T virus, I forgot what it stood for.
Wasn't it for like transmitting?
I think that was transmitting. Give me a second, I'll check right now.
Because I think I remember what G was.
I know what G is genetics.
Yes.
It's for the genetic coding. The T virus was a single. Oh, it was a virus that was supposed to eliminate threats of biochemicals and everything, but instead it was transforming people. That's what it was doing.
Okay.
But with the G virus, because they only got a sample of it, because the man that was behind the whole viral situation was William Birkin, and his best friend in the world, you know it, I know it, Albert Wesker. They became real close buddies. Albert Wesker was not just a mercenary. He was not just a police officer. He was actually also a scientist.
Yes.
And yeah, and he's like by far my favorite baddie, which we're gonna get into the whole other concept with him. But yeah, going back to Resident Evil 2, as everything spread, this is a new virus of the genetic virus. It enhanced the T virus. The T virus enhanced the genetic virus and became even more superior than the regular T virus. However, not only do you have control of two awesome characters, you got Leon and Claire, but you also run into a couple of other characters. You got Sherry Birkin, the daughter of William and Jeanette Birkin, Ada Wong, my baby girl. Oh, God. I love me some Ada. I'm sorry, I can't help it. She makes my
correction, her name is Annette. You said Jeanette.
Oh, thank you. Annette Birkin. Sorry. See, I make mistakes too.
Oh, no, I know.
We all make
We're
mistakes.
human.
Yeah. We're some so-called fans. No, they stop. But in other words, how, and then all the lies that has been spitting on in the Operation Raccoon City, we don't talk about Dark Times. Well, it does have something to do with the Resident Evil 2 and 3, but we'll get into that. Even though I don't want to, we'll get into that. But with the Resident Evil 2, how the story came to be, how the plot, how not only was just the police department was affected, not only the town was affected, but there was so many lies that was going down in the Raccoon City Police Department, which had to do with one person, and that was the chief of police.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Chief Irons.
yeah. And what about that? What about oh my God, what was his name? Marcus, right? The the police officer that you find.
Uh, was it Marcus?
Martin. It was either Martin or Marcus.
Yeah, it began with an M,
Yeah,
and I was just speedrunning it, and I completely forgot.
yeah. Well, in the OG, he actually looks like Will Smith.
Yeah, he does.
Oh my God, from Fresh Prince of Bel Air. From the Fresh Prince, he actually looks like Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel Air. But the whole transition from the police station, well, from the streets of Raccoon City to the police station to
Marvin.
Marvin, all right, to the police station to the underground laboratories to just it was just so much. And on top of that, like he said, they had this was by far our favorite because this had more of a story. You can't just beat this game in an hour or two. You just can't. If you go by maybe the scenarios, if because you are a speedrunner,
Yeah.
if you want to complete the entire game, will this game take you at least 2 hours? From all the
Yeah,
scenarios.
it should, yes. It should take you about 2 hours to 2.5 hours.
To complete every scenario. Like the
Yes.
whole game in 2 hours.
Yes, if you're speedrunning it, because B isn't that long. I'm
True.
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it takes people like myself. It only takes me about an hour and 10 minutes to beat one scenario. So if the second scenario is just as long, it shouldn't take more than 2.5 hours.
So you're saying Leon A and B, Claire A and B, all that together.
I thought
That's
we were
what,
talking about A and B. Okay, no,
no,
that
no,
would
no.
take you about 5 hours, 6 hours.
Yeah. And including Hunk and Tofu? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh man. Tofu's by far the funniest. Like
of course.
yeah. Oh, and do you remember what Capcom did? Well, it wasn't Capcom. I think it was GamePro that did it. What they did to us fans for Resident Evil, even though that this is a Capcom game.
Yes,
What did they do?
they threw in a joke on on getting a certain character or getting a certain mode, and it was basically S ranking the mercenaries mode, and it was no joke. That was no joke to us fans.
No,
That
it
was
wasn't. I literally, hold on, I don't mean to stop you there. I
go
literally
ahead.
have a memory card filled with 1 hour and like 5 minutes of all the scenarios, including Hunk and Tofu, in this card. Just explain.
No, you can explain it because you actually went through it. That's your story.
Well, I asked you. Go ahead. I'll explain my story, but go ahead.
I honestly didn't finish it. I gave up halfway through because I was just like, this doesn't seem right to me. But I pushed through most of it. I know I don't have that record in what you have on that memory card, but I stressed through most of that.
And what did they do to us? Who were we supposed to get, and what did they do?
I don't remember who we were supposed to get, but I do know the outcome of it. But I would rather have you tell your story
Okay.
before.
Okay, well, when I got the Game Pro monthly, I got the March edition. And then all of a sudden, like, we're getting this character if we do all this? Dude. So, why am I hearing myself repeat? Oh, that's probably never mind. So, I'm like, dude, are you serious? We're getting this character? What it was that you had to complete all the scenarios, including Hunkin Tofu, with an S rank. You have to complete all the scenarios, and if you do that, who emerged in the cryo tube in the laboratory was Akuma from Street Fighter.
That's who it was.
So I bust my ass to get that. Let me see if they have the picture. I gotta post that. Let me see. I wish I still had that book when I was a kid. I still wished I had that book. But oh, that was a picture in the book. I remember that picture. That was supposed to be the picture that was in the book in the game. But then I've been trying so hard. And then like a week before I got the magazine, I completed it. And I was wondering why I haven't gotten Akuma yet. What did I do wrong? Did I miss time step? And it was driving me crazy until the April edition of Game Pro came out. It clearly said this, which I just passed by. I'm just gonna read. Resident Evil 2 Akuma was an April Fool's joke to get fans all riled up to playing Resident Evil 2. They came up with that sick concept and I was heartbroken.
I gave up halfway through.
I was pissed. Not just pissed. Fucking pissed.
He was livid.
I was on the verge of just breaking everything. I literally, no joke, I literally cried. I even cried to my mother. I remember that day. It's like, I wanted Akuma. My mom said, whacked me upside the head, literally, and just said, "You're over here crying for a stupid game." Oh my god.
You don't understand the struggle and pain.
The struggle, the pain, the sweat, the tears, the anger, the rage I suffered, all because we didn't get Akuma in Resident Evil 2. I was so heartbroken. Henceforth, that's where it led when to a game which I can't wait for the remake. And Capcom, what the hell are you doing? We were supposed to get... No, we got in a demo. If you got into Resident Evil 2, right then and there, you get the demo of Dino Crisis.
Yes,
Dino Crisis was one of the games that was actually with... excuse me. Was actually with the Resident Evil 2 game. So if you got it the early release, you get the demo of Dino Crisis, which was actually really good. That was a really good, not a zombie game, but a dinosaur game, but it was still a survival horror by Shinji Mikami. So now we're going to move forward into the Resident Evil 2 remake, which you mentioned earlier that you do speedrun.
Yes.
How about you tell a little bit about that?
So, as someone who was currently or has been a trophy hunter for a while, I was going for all the trophies in Resident Evil 2 Remake. And one of the trophies or achievements, whatever platform you play it on, consists you of beating the game under a certain amount of steps. Now, at the time, I wasn't even going for that. I was going for the other one, the Minimalist, where it requires you to beat the game without going into the item box once. And after playing the game so many times, I just followed the same route I normally go to. And realizing once I beat the game, I had gotten both achievements or trophies completed in one shot. And I had said to myself, you know what? If it was not that easy, but somewhat fun in my opinion, I'm going to start pursuing into speedrunning this game. And that's how I actually got into speedrunning for Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Mm.
And seeing the outcomes between both Leon and Claire in this remake, there is definitely a difference in both stories on where, not story wise as much, but when you're going through the same path as the other characters, you notice that there are enemies in locations that are not in the other route for the other character, which made me like enjoy the game more because one is actually harder than the other one
Yeah.
without even to have to increase the difficulty. If you're both on standard, one standard is harder than the other, and it's all because of RNG, which stands for random number generator, and that is basically the in-game difficulty alongside with DA. And I keep forgetting what this means, and I think it's difficulty adaptation, and that is based off of how many bullets you have in your gun and how often you pick up items, whether it be ammo or a helpful item, whether it be first aid or a knife. The game will increase the difficulty on how often you pick up items.
Yeah. See, he does a lot of speed running. I sit down. Well, he does sit down and enjoy the game. When it first comes out, and then he'll speed run it. I'm guessing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So me, I'm the type of person that I love to enjoy my games. So with the characters and the whole concept, I love how they changed some stuff around, and the graphics was really good. How we got a little more of the story as well out of the Resident Evil 2. But my major downfall, and I believe Mercado would agree with me on this, was that it didn't feel like Resident Evil 2.
No, it did not.
And the reason why I say that is because you're cutting huge portions out of the game. Like in the original game, Leon and Claire always communicated at certain points of the game.
Yes, they
In this
did.
in this game, they only communicated 3 times. That was it.
Yes, the beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. The beginning, the gate, and at the very end. The gate scene, the beginning scene when they met up. The gate scene is when she was outside in the rain, and then he just came after the helicopter ran into the building.
Mm-hmm.
and at the very end when the place was about to blow.
Yes.
So if you are looking at this and you haven't played the game, there are going to be spoilers because this is the history from Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 0, all the way to Resident Evil 8. So with that whole concept, what I loved actually about Resident Evil 2 was Mr. X.
Yes.
Mr. X was phenomenal in this game. Like he really didn't chase you in the OG as much, but he chased your ass on both sides. He chased your ass throughout the whole thing. Like it didn't matter where you were. He's gonna chase you and he's gonna rock you.
Yes.
What would you say about that?
I mean, I agree with you on that. Mr. X in the OG, he was more of a scripted scene area. Once you got to a certain part of the game, he would make his appearance. As to where Resident Evil 2 Remake, he is randomly and constantly walking around the police department. And the only time he would actually stop chasing you is if you're actually playing on Claire's route. There is a scene where Tyrant disappears. But the fact that they had implemented that, I guess you could say, AI of a character in the game was made this game scarier and more stressful
And
and
challenging.
challenging. Yes, because you don't know where this guy is. and you will hear his footsteps, but he won't be in the room or in the hallway with you. He might be in the room next to you, walking toward you.
Okay.
And what I did like about this game is that he can identify where you're at just by you firing your gun anywhere in the police
Or making
department.
any loud noise, because I remember I ran hard and then all of a sudden he just started chasing me. Like I was trying to get by him on one scene to get to the safe room, but he was in the hallway, so I'm like creeping up, and then there was a zombie I'm hearing punching through the doors, and then when I ran, that's when he started chasing my ass.
Yes.
So oh
Yes.
my god. And with the history on this though was just like, I like how they implemented new things. You know, I'm always for implementing, but why is it that when you have both characters going their different routes, and in the OG they went their different routes, they still communicated and they came back, and they had both their own different stories.
Yes.
This one, it was like they gave you a portion of different stories and then they came right back and went straight together. It was just like, why did you do that? There was no point. This game was by far one of my favorite Resident Evils, and you just shat on it. Thanks a lot, Capcom.
Yeah. There was no mention at all of the mayor's daughter. You only see her in
True.
Clara route. As to where the OG, she was in Leon's story and was spoken about.
Claire's
Uh,
story.
yes. Was
Yeah, Claire, because she found the mayor with the daughter.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes. Why did I think Leon? Sorry, he doesn't come across him.
He came.
Um,
No, he came across with the file, the letter. He was able to get the letter.
okay, that's what it
Yeah.
was. All right. Then there was the lack of, I guess, taking care of Cheryl, because I do
Sherry.
remember Sherry. I'm thinking of Silent Hill all of a sudden. Um, I do remember playing as Leon in the OG, and when Leon and Clara met up with each other, they did talk, and she said, "Look, there's a little girl walking around. If you find her, take care of her. She needs help." And there was a scene where you did need to use Sherry as a character, and all she did was just run away from everything. You couldn't have her get attacked, which I liked, because that was what made the game a lot harder. As to where the remake, you're playing hide and seek with the chief,
Yeah.
which I I thought was lazy.
It was a little inventive. I will give it that, just a little, but I agree it was lazy.
That's basically my only downside to that. And again, the lack of story between the two different characters of having their own story. It just seems like they copied and pasted the same route and just said, "All right." It To me, I think Resident Evil 2 remake is more of a Claire Redfield story than a Leon story,
I agree.
because Claire is the only character to interact with all stages of the G virus. She interacts with G4, where Leon has to deal with Tyrant. And then
And
when you beat the scenarios, if you do it with Leon, he skips G4 and goes to G5.
and on top of that, then he has to fight the Mr. X tyrant. However, with the OG, both characters can fight them.
Yes.
Both William the G5 and the tyrant, Mr. X
Yes.
tyrant.
Yeah.
It
That
was. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Cause you got it.
No, it was just poorly scripted on that end. Like, as soon as you get down, it's just like, all right, we're expecting this and we're getting that. We're getting that, and why do we get this? Like, what really pissed me off the worst was the crocodile scene, the alligator. That's what pissed me off the worst. Fine, you're getting chased by the crocodile like always and whatnot, but you're able to like turn around and fire at the croc. You know, I always did that. But this one, you just like, oh, you gotta run here, let the croc put this in the mouth, and you blow it up.
Yeah. Straight
That
Crash
was
Bandicoot status.
exactly. It was just pointless. Like, but Ada looks so good in there. I'm sorry, I keep saying Ada. Oh, Ada. But and with that being said, was just like how this all came to be was the story was that Umbrella is trying to cover all their tracks. This was Resident Evil 2 and 3 was all based about was Umbrella just trying to cover their tracks. They didn't want, to be all implemented, which comes from another game which we're going to talk about after 3, which I really don't want to, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
So, do you think we covered all the aspects for this, or is there stuff that you want to add?
Nope. I think we got it.
Oh, okay. So, if you have any questions, please type in, and we'll be happy to answer them. So, let's move on to. Oh, and correction. Dino Crisis. No, not Dino Crisis. Uh, I think it was Tomb Raider. There was a game that leaked out the demo of Resident Evil first. I forget what game was that. Then Resident Evil 1 leaked out Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis leaked out Resident Evil 2. That was the whole thing. So I do apologize. Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 did not leak out the Dino Crisis. It was Resident Evil 1 that leaked out Dino Crisis. If you bought the Director's Cut edition, you get the Dino Crisis in there as well.
I had gotten the demo for Resident Evil 2
With what from that
on Director's Cut.
Oh, then all right, then everything did happen. Then I'm sorry, I got a little confused. But yeah,
I thought it was Resident Evil 3 that might have leaked the Dino Crisis demo.
No, the Dino Crisis demo was leaked after Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3 didn't have anything. It just had just the game. That was it. Let's see. Let's go on to. And it's taking forever. It shouldn't be. OG. Let's put OG. There we go. Let's talk about one of the most badass characters that I fucking love. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now, this game actually takes place during and before the whole Resident Evil 2 outbreak. Am I right on that?
Yes.
This game features a reoccurring character, Jill Valentine. And she is stuck in the middle as the virus has gone out. And it's not just the T virus. The T virus is there, but it's actually a mixture of, if you may know, the G virus as well. So, how do you feel about this story in this game? On the history of it.
This one is a runner-up to OG2 because we are brought back Jill and we're kind of continuing from where she left off from 1, but it also indicates the beginning of what happens in 2. And it's not only, someone, got out of the facility and had started biting people. No, this was caused another way. And the creature that chases you throughout 3, Nemesis, is one of my favorite bosses to deal with because not only in the OG3 do you fight him multiple times, he has multiple stages as you progress through the story.
Yeah.
And with Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I liked how open this game was because you're in the city and you're not in the police department. You're running through alleyways and you have to backtrack to these sections to progress into the game. You're also running through restaurants. And what made this game a lot more unique than the other ones is that there was split-second decision making before shit got real. And that was the best thing I had ever incurred in a Resident Evil, because not only was it a split-second thing, depending on what you chose also became your ending.
Mm-hmm.
There were multiple endings to this Resident Evil, and I like I like games that have multiple endings because that adds replay value to it instead of running through it and beating it and go, okay, cool, I beat it. Like, no, there's multiple endings. There's a good and equal, or there's a good ending, a bad ending, and then there's another ending. And it depended on how you got rid of Nemesis.
Yeah. I mean, my experience of this game, I'm not going to give this game any bad credit or whatnot. And also, you run into an ally, an Umbrella mercenary named Carlos Rivera.
Yes.
Well, technically, he wasn't a mercenary. He was actually still a soldier. But when Umbrella left him there for dead and his team, they became mercenaries. Now, if anybody, before anybody ever starts bringing up the movies, we are not going to condone any of the movies in this Resident Evil history. This is just pure video games because I hate to say it, I'm sorry, but out of all the Resident Evil movies that ever popped out, Resident Evil 2 Apocalypse actually was my favorite because it had something to do with the game of
Yeah,
Resident
I'm
Evil 2.
I'm with 1 and 2. Everything else after 1 and 2,
I did
I
not
did.
like 1 at all because it had nothing to do with the game.
I mean, you started off in a mansion and went into an underground facility.
Yeah,
That was
but
basically it.
it took everything away. It's something. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Part 2 was the best, in my opinion. They had some great characters that looked a part of Resident Evil characters from all the movies. My two favorite is Ada and Wesker. I think they both pulled it off. Not the Wesker from Extinction. We don't talk about him. He's too scrawny. No offense, but but the other Wesker from I think the last three movies and Ada Wong, yeah, they played. I think they were the best choices. Nothing against Mila Jovovich. You know, I respect a lot of her. It's just that in the whole movie and everything, it wasn't there for me. So we're not going to cover the movies here.
Yeah.
The CGI movies, we're just gonna put it like this, and we're gonna leave it at that. Yes, they have timelines in this, but this is just Resident Evil games. They could have done, they could have been better. There's some good aspects. One character saved Vendetta. One character only saved that movie Vendetta. If not, I would have probably returned and got my money back. But back, we're not going to there. We're going back to Resident Evil 3. Now, what I loved about Nemesis, he was almost like Mr. X. Nemesis, well, a little more advanced than Mr. X.
Yes.
Nemesis chased you everywhere. He didn't care where you were going. And he ran 2 times faster than you. Yeah, you could dip him because he's too large and everything and he can't turn. It takes him a little bit of time to turn, so you can dip him. Oh, and then the other feature that you forgot to add was Resident Evil 3 had a dodge canny that you had to time right.
Yes.
Had an
But
uncanny dodge.
it was like just as you were about to get hit, you needed to aim and you would dodge.
Yeah. It was a pain. You had to aim in order to dodge. It was a pain, but if you could time everything right, it would be very, very good. That was another thing that they added to this game that it wasn't supported in any of their Resident Evils. But with the story complex, how everything advanced, how you found betrayals with some of the mercenaries, you picked up an ally, Carlos Rivera. What else? And how the stages where Nemesis had to go through. Basically, you see Nemesis, his only function was to hunt down STARS members. And I'm gonna post up this picture. I posted up before, but yeah, this is one of the STARS members that was completely fucked over. He was one of the survivors from the Resident Evil. He was the pilot, Brad Vickers. He got the fat end of the baseball bat when he ran into Nemesis. Well, technically, he was trying to run away from Nemesis. Nemesis caught him and stuck a tentacle right through his head.
He had it coming to him, though.
Yeah, he was just like, yeet! Oh, and side note, with Resident Evil 2, the OG, You can actually run into Brad Vickers if you do not pick up any ammo from the beginning of the game all the way until you get to the police station. When you get to the police station, from the beginning of the game to the police station, you don't pick up any ammo. You get the special zombie Brad Vickers. He's under the tunnel, and you could kill him to get the special key, so you can open the lockers that's in
The dark room.
the dark room. Yeah, the photo room, dark room. So yeah, that's another haiku right there. Well, not a haiku, but another. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
But what I loved about this game was that it had replay value to it. There was new functions added to it. If I had to say anything that I wish that this game had a little more of, I would have to say, I mean, they had new zombies and whatnot, but I would like something. Oh my god, how do I say this? A little more enemies in certain areas, because you go into one area, there's like only one or two enemies in there, and it's just like the only time you get like a vast majority of enemies is if you're in an open area. Well, not even, but in the cinematic, there you go. In the trigger cinematic, that's when you get more zombies. But I wish that there was a little more, so it makes it a little more challenging. That's about it. Now we go to the Ruination. And you already know where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Oh, boy.
Where do we begin?
All right, guys, that's it. It's over. Resident Evil 3 Remake over. That's literally how fast that remake was.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to enjoy this game when they stated they took out the decision making and the multiple endings to this game. Once I heard that, I kind of wanted to cancel my reservation, but me being a Resident Evil fan, I said no. Let me go in and play this game. I should have waited for it to go on sale. That's all I'm going to say about that. But this game took more out than what Resident Evil 2 Remake took out.
Who you telling?
And I'm talking like a good 45% of the game was taken out. We were supposed to go to the clock tower. We get to the clock tower, but you don't go in it at all.
For like a good 3 minutes.
We fought outside the clock tower. You get outside the sewer, and then you see this guy on fire running into the water, and he skips his best form. His topless form with the whips. Yeah, you don't see that in this.
Tentacle whips.
None of that was in Remake. And homie has a heart respirate? What is that? I don't know what... This is what happens when Capcom decides to give their game to a different company that made the Remake 2 and was like, all right, guys, you have full rights and control to do whatever you want with Resident Evil 3. Don't let us down. Well, you let the fans down.
Yes. And I have to add this. The game was good to a certain point. It's like right when you start the game, to this train, it was good.
It was slow, but good.
Yeah. But from the train onward, it was mass destruction. And I don't mean like destruction that's in a good thing. I mean mass destruction that Capcom, what the hell, bro? Like, seriously? You cut off, like M3rcad0 said, you cut off the clock tower. That was by far the best part. In my point of view, that was the best part. Because there was a lot more puzzles in there.
Yeah, that's like 5 puzzles gone.
Yeah. That's like entertainment that was gone. And then the cinematic when you're like ready for the chopper to come, and then he blows it up. That was the best part. Where was all that? No, what do we get? We get to fight My Kitty Rainbow running up along the all over the walls like he's fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
And they messed up in the beginning of the game too. When you get to the top of the parking garage and you're gonna go to that chopper and it blows up,
Yeah.
homie doesn't even have a rocket launcher on him at all. No weapons. So how did that blow up? Did someone throw
What's up, Bobby
C4 at
Wiz?
it? Hello.
Yeah, it's just like I love. Don't get me wrong. As you can see in the picture on my screen, I love what they did to Nemesis. He looks dope as shit. Granted, I agree. What's with the fucking heart respirator? What is this? Another Norman Reedus with the magical fetus in there instead of the fetus, it's his heart.
Yeah.
But I do love his look, and a lot of people. There's some people that didn't like it. There's a lot of people that do like it. The one thing that I did not like is that he's covered in trash bags.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing that I didn't like. I love his face. I love the way he looks. He looks so dope. But the trash bag suit, really? You're making him look like a tyrant bum.
Yeah. I do miss the staples that were across his face though.
Yeah. Well, like I said, people would like to do new designs. They didn't take much away from him, which I respect. They just did a couple of details to him, but you could still tell it's Nemesis. That's where I'm
Yes.
getting at. You could still tell it's Nemesis. The one thing that I hated about this game, and Mercado, I hope you agree with me with this, he was nothing like Mr. X in the remake.
No. He was not.
Nemesis in the OG, Nemesis chased you no matter what. You go through a door and he sees you go through that, he's gonna go right through there with you. You go try to hide from him, he's gonna find you, except if it's a safe room. That's the only time that he doesn't run away from you. But with this one, he don't chase you at all. You only see him in certain areas, and that's it.
The scripted areas that he's at.
Yeah. They let us down with that. I was expecting a fucking chase. They were amping this up. Oh, you gotta be careful. Mr. X, Nemesis is gonna chase you. You thought Mr. X was creepy? Watch Nemesis be in his new form, chasing after you. And we didn't get that.
No.
You straight up lied to us. Just straight up lied to us. Which I was kind of pissed off, and I'm kind of happy, but still mad that I didn't get the collector's edition to this game, because the only thing I probably really wanted was the Jill statue. But I was in the hospital at that time and I got sick, and not with the corona. I'm diagnosed with asthma. Thank goodness it was that, and I missed out on getting the collector edition. But thank God I didn't miss out on the other one, which we'll bring up. But all in all, the story needed work in this game. It was up to par from half the game. The other half was just straight up trash and garbage. With Carlos Rivera, I think they did a pretty good, decent job on him. The one thing that I hated was that, like Mercado said, and I agree, they took out the ability to choose the situation and the stipulation that you want. You could have done that with Nikolai. You could fight him in the helicopter, or you could just wait until he just leaves. It was a choice making. You didn't get that in this game. The story, pretty bad. There was stuff that made the game so good, Capcom took it out. Well, not Capcom, the people who made the remake took it out. I guess they never played Resident Evil 3. So moving on. Now to a game before we go into the concept of the other one after Resident Evil 3. As much as I don't want to debut this game, I have to, because it does resemble Resident Evil 2 and 3. You already know where I'm going with this.
See, I don't even.
Go ahead. I still have to.
So I'm confused because I stopped once they started charging me for the other story.
Yeah. let's talk about this. This monstrosity. Okay. Like some of the characters, Vector was by far my favorite. I love Vector. Why? He was trained by none other than Hunk. Before I give my opinions, I always let my guests give their opinions first. So, we are talking about Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City that takes place of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, which this one you plays as the operatives of the special ops from the Umbrella Corporation that tries to cover their tracks. Now, your opinions and thoughts about the game.
I liked the concept of the game as you being an Umbrella Squad going in and covering your tracks. The cast, again, Vector is probably the best one out of that group. Not only was he trained by Hunk, his outfit was pretty dope, and the fact that he was the only one that can go invisible.
What's up, Shih Tzu? Welcome to the stream, man. Continue, I'm sorry.
I did not like, however, how the game was portrayed on how the story went with them and how it ended up with the operatives having that option to kill a certain character without spoiling it. But the path that they took was cool. It was great. You go into the city, you make your way down to the laboratories, you grab what you needed to grab, and then get out before everything has gone to shit. There is, however, which I didn't really get into, was it like a STARS operative team as well? Or was that BSAA?
No, that was STAR's operative team.
That was STARS. Okay.
Yeah.
It
was SSR. I forget the name of it, but it was the SSR team.
Okay. That story I didn't get into. One, it took forever for that to drop, and two, it should have been in the game when it came out.
Yeah.
Why was I being charged another $30 for 5 chapters? That's where I lost my interest altogether to continuing the story.
I'm actually surprised that you paid $30. I paid $60 for this fucking game.
No. I mean, I paid full, but I'm saying to buy each chapter separately was like $5 each.
Yeah.
Yeah, once I had seen that, I was like, no. But I did, however, buy the collector's edition for both PS4 and not PS4, for PS3 and 360, just because of the hard steel case and the patches that came in it.
So did I. But
besides that there's nothing really to talk about this. Vector was a good character, and maybe a few others, but they all had their classes. At this point, it should have been almost equivalent to Outbreak. Or...
No, Outbreak was a lot better than this.
No. I'm saying, like, how you went through Outbreak. Okay. It should have been like that. But with, I guess, the over-the-shoulder type thing, as if it was a remake of Outbreak. But the fact that you go to these sections, you have your character classes, but they just couldn't follow through. They fell short somewhere. But, I mean, if I had to rate this, I'd give this a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it a little lesser than that. But here's my reason why I despise this game. I would say it like this. I'd rather play this game more than Umbrella Corps. I would rather play this game more than Umbrella Corps. If you don't know what Umbrella Corps is, go look at it and you'll understand what I mean.
That has nothing to do with the story, so we're not even going to talk about it.
But I'm just saying, if I had to play any game, I'd probably play this than Umbrella Corps. But let's keep it moving with this. All right, my thoughts on the game. I gave this a 2 out of 10. And my only reasons why was that I did get the DLC for it. So you're telling me I paid $60 for a game, plus I paid an additional $34.99 to get the rest of the game. thanks Capcom, you just took my money for bullshit. And for the other side characters, they had the same abilities as the Umbrella characters. All of them had the same classes, as just like there was a girl that could go invisible, just like Vector. Oh, they had a bomber. They had a healer. Everything that they had, Umbrella had. Now, the only good things that I liked about this game was that you understand why they were covering up. Umbrella was covering up their stuff. You had to go through that. How Mr. X got activated. How Nemesis got activated. And the last one being basically the characters. The concept that you can hold a zombie as a body shield and just start shooting. I love that concept. I thought that was smart. But other than that, that was it. The game was moved at a very too fast of a pace. And what really killed this game for me is that you have the option to kill Leon. Why? If Leon was in Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil movies, why would you have the option? What, are you trying to do a what if moment? But the character is in other game. He was actually the first time Leon ever made an appearance was in Resident Evil Gaiden, Game Boy Color. And you go ahead and just shit on it. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I had never played that one, but I do remember that game.
I played it and everything, and supposedly he was a clone. At the end, you find out that he's a clone. So, yeah. But then all of a sudden, you have all this that leads up to this game, and I would say the enemies look great, the zombies look great, the characters look good. The story was garbage, the playthrough time was even more horrendous, and the option that you get to kill one of the main protagonists in the game. Yeah, and then you're paying $60 when the first game dropped for 5 scenarios only that you could beat within an hour. Well, if you play through the game, you could probably get maybe 2.5 hours out of it. But if you speedrun it, I'd be impressed if people could speedrun this in like 45 minutes. Yeah.
I can check for you right now what the record is.
Yeah, actually check that record. Let's enlighten the people that's watching this. What is the record? Because you being a speedrunner and all, what is the record time of people beating this game?
If I were to say to Capcom, if they were to ever, and I hope they don't, think about remaking this, don't do it. Just give us Vector and his background story.
Oh,
that
yes.
was the only thing that game had good for it.
Oh my
was
God.
Vector and the background story. That beginning scene where it brought us back to Resident Evil 2 when you're getting chased by Birkin.
Yeah.
And Hunk sacrifices himself, like, that was a big, yo, this game's going to be dope. Nope, they dropped it right there.
We need a Hunk background story, too.
Yeah. Oh, boy, there is. Oh, my God. Okay. So the main... Did someone really do... Yeah. So the main scenario, which is the USS, they only got it to about 57 minutes and 22 seconds on PC. Obviously, PS3 is going to take a little bit longer because the PC runs the game faster.
Yeah.
But the fastest time on normal is 57. On casual, it's 51. So you got about 50 to 60 minutes of the game for a $60 game.
Moving on, because I'm done talking about this crap.
Yeah, no one ran it on PC for the DLC.
Yeah.
Damn.
And anybody who wants to know who Vector is, who we're talking about, there's a picture right here of him. He's a guy wearing that beautiful, gorgeous mask, looking like he ready to kick some ass and chew bubblegum, and said, fuck Duke Nukem, that he's all out of bubblegum. But yeah, this guy right here, the one with the blue eyes, that's Vector. Badassery.
I like the trailer that they had him come in with, where
Yeah.
he snuck up behind the other dude
And
and
if you
held him hostage.
Yeah, and if you chose him as a character, he was the last one to speak. He goes, "Vector here. It's good to see you again, sir."
Yeah.
Oh my god, I was just like, yeah, you just gave me goosebumps. But yeah, moving on to Resident Evil 4. I loved how they brought back Leon. The game was really good. There's just some problems, not with the game, but with outside of the game, which I will go into details after we get M3rcad0's feedback. So, what did this game mean to you? How did it play out? And what is your pros and cons about the game?
Well, this game was definitely GameCube's finest game when it first came out because it originally only came out on GameCube, and this took place 2006,
I believe so.
and the gameplay was completely different. We were originally used to locked camera angles and non-actiony type of gameplay. This game, however, had an over-the-shoulder camera angle, and not only was it actiony in some parts, a little more actiony, but it still kept its horror. There were scenes or were parts of the game you're going through sections and things decide to jump out. There were traps in this game, and there were also quick time events. Now, the quick time events did kind of kill the aspect of the horror because you see it happening and you try and get away. The thing about this game I enjoyed a lot was the fact that this is one of the longer games of Resident Evil throughout the series. There's this game and there's Code Veronica. They're the two longest games. And if you were to ever speed run it, it takes people about 2 hours to 2.5 hours to speed run Resident Evil 4 and or Code Veronica.
Which
I like
I should have brought out Code Veronica first and then Resident Evil 4, but I'll do that. I missed the timeline.
that's fine because
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
I don't know if you want to talk about Outbreak either. That's not really story wise.
yeah, it doesn't have. I wanted to go to story transition. That's why if I didn't want to, I wouldn't have brought out Operation Raccoon City, but I had to because it consists with the story.
Yeah. So uh, it's great to see Leon and what happened to him after the incident in Raccoon City. He is now I forgot what kind of agent he is. I know he's working for the president and he's protecting the president's daughter, but I forgot what
We'll just call him a bodyguard.
line a bodyguard?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just call him a bodyguard.
Um it was great to see him after so long and what had happened to him after Resident Evil 2. And the fact that he's no longer a rookie, he understands what's going on and what he needs to do when he's in dire situations. The fact that this game had not necessarily zombies, but more intelligent enemies than zombies. They work together and they're using weapons. I remember at the age of 16, I was still shitting myself because of the burlap sack man and the chainsaw. That man scared the bejesus out of me multiple times, and not because he's scary and chasing you. The fact that if he got to you, it was a one-hit kill. And this is at the very beginning of the game.
That's the guy that's right here with that long goatee that he has with his hand up in the air.
Oh, that's
picture.
The big cheese.
Yep.
No, I'm talking about burlap sack.
Burlap sack.
The guy with the chainsaw.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, he was the one who scared me the most because he would come out of nowhere while you're being chased by a gang of villagers. Homie would come up behind you on a flank and hit you.
Yeah.
And once he got to you, it's the classic scene that they had advertised the game with before this one was Leon getting his head chopped off. And that's exactly what happens to you every time he gets you.
And don't mean to cut you off, but going back to what you said, what Leon was, he was a U.S. federal government. He was an agent for the U.S. federal government as part of a special anti-umbrella task force.
That's
That's
what
what
it
he
was.
was.
But yeah, um, the progression of this game was very good. I like the fact that they had the merchant. He was always
What
there
are
in
you
certain.
buying?
He was always there to help you out in certain situations, and as you progressed, he would have more items in his inventory. When you first see him, I think he gives you like a shotgun or a rifle, and then maybe a shotgun, and then you find pieces throughout the game to upgrade your weapons, and he himself can give you more powerful upgrades for that said weapon. I do remember hearing my sister actually going through this game without spending trading the jewels to him. She kept every single jewel, didn't upgrade the handgun, and just kept buying handgun bullets and went through the game with just a handgun.
Oh wow.
I don't know how she did it. My brother-in-law can even state that she did that. He was like, "Yo, babe, you can sell those crystals." No, no, I'm gonna use it for later on in the game. You might
You
not.
can't
You don't
take
know if you need.
you can't
You don't
take
know
a
if you
woman
need to use
from
it on the
diamonds
door.
and jewels.
Yeah, yeah.
Just kidding. I'm not trying to be sexist. I was just kidding. Every
But yeah,
kiss begins with K.
but this game it was definitely the turning point for the Resident Evil series.
Mm. And on that note, this game was a turning point. It turned not just heads, not just the gameplays, but it turned you you would think that a game this good would not have any drawbacks at all. It did. It had major drawbacks. Because and the reason why I say that is granted, I can't find nothing wrong with this game. It was one of the game, and for its time, I think it was like one of the first shooter games with the over the shoulder. It was a little difficult for people to work with, but then when you like started playing it through, you got the hang of it. You know how to run, you know how to do quick turns, you know how to aim real good. And what I love about it is the tension with the guns as well. Like it's not just point and shoot. You have to point and you got to be careful because the gun will move on its own. Your hands will stutter. It's like in actual real life how you would do it. Now, the game's gameplay, before I get into the real bad reason about this game, the game's gameplay is phenomenal, as Mercado just said. It's one of the longest games that was actually made throughout the entire Resident Evil series. It was one of the longest games. The puzzles was awesome, and when you run into these new characters like the Merchant, um, Salazar, that little rugrat, I forget what his name is.
Oh, Napoleon.
Yeah, that little Napoleon guy. The big head honcho with the damn goatee right there. That he does not care. He'll like grab you with one hand, just lift you up and let your feet dangle. Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden you get Ada again. Oh, my baby, my bitch in a red dress. And one of my favorite characters, even though that he had a short run, Krauser. Krauser was a badass character. Like he will fuck you up. But with that,
Question.
yeah,
Go. I will. I'll. Before we go into the next game, I have a question on what we would put into story mode.
okay.
Um, since you brought up Krauser, would you add the Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Chronicles? Because there was that mission where I think it was Krauser. I don't know if it was with Leon, but I do remember Krauser was with Chris, I think, at one point.
Yeah. I would definitely put those, but the reason why I was going through this whole scenario is because they were just quick time shooters.
Yes, they were.
I would have added Survivor and Dead Aim, but they were just quick time shooters, so that's why I'm not adding them.
Okay, they're rail shooters. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't explain much more to the story than what we're getting on the Resident Evil things. They practically said the same thing, but Dark Side Chronicles was by far my favorite. I liked
Yeah.
Chronicles, but Dark Side was my favorite. It just gave you much more of the character and seeing the character. But their story rise, it Resident Evil 4 still explained everything. So that I would have to say. Um, I have a lot of love and respect for the game. But going back to the story and everything, how it transitions, how that little bit of story of Krauser's story felt a gap with Leon, it was very understandable. Now, going to the con about this game, why I said that it left a lot of people on a bad note. After this game was created, the director himself, Shinji Mikami, left Capcom. Numerous reasons why. Shinji Mikami, there, this game was going through. Resident Evil 4 was going through a lot of drops, a lot of cancellations and everything because what Shinji Mikami envisioned was that he wanted this game not just to be called Resident Evil 4. This game the original title was supposed to be called Resident Evil the Progenitor. And it's supposed to explain the facts of the Wesker children. Now, many people had seen gameplays of the old school Resident Evil 4 what it was supposed to be. You had little dead baby dolls crawling around with like little knives on their hands stabbing at your ankles. You had ghosts attacking you and whatnot. But these were people and things that had died during in being in the mansion. This was like a 3-story, like a big gigantic mansion, opposed from Resident Evil 1. But this was the Oswald estate, one of his mansions. But it was called the Oswald estate. However, the technology that he wanted to do with the black fogs and the blue mists and whatnot, he couldn't condone that because they didn't have the technology or the software to do stuff like that, not as we do today. So he had to work what he can. So when he debuted that demo, it was really good. It's what people were really looking forward to. Until Capcom did him dirty. They went behind his back, had a meeting, and they clearly stated that they want him to scrap it. He was 80% done with the game. They want him to scrap it. They want him to build another type of game, but instead of being a virus, they wanted it to be a plague. He was a little down discomfort with that. And on top of that, what really got him more upset was that Shinji Mikami wanted this debuted on the next gen console, which was a PlayStation 2. However, they put it on GameCube, a dying console.
Yeah.
That's was Shinji Mikami's last straw. After he gave them Resident Evil 4, which was such a great game, he put his spin on it, but gave Capcom what they wanted, and he left. He went to not Tango Gameworks. He went to work for a company called Platinum Games. Then they tried to do him dirty, so he grabbed all his resources and some of his old team, created created his own company and signed with another company, Bethesda, which he paid homage and tribute with Evil Within. If you played Evil Within, like a good 15 minutes into the game, he paid homage and tribute to his creation, Resident Evil, which they had a little Resident Evil montage on it with the whole zombie turning around and everything looking after he's having Joseph as a meal. And then that's when you get the gun and shoot him. He paid homage and tribute to the Resident Evil game because that was his baby. And yeah. Resident Evil 4 was supposed to be just for GameCube, but since GameCube was dying, Shinji Mikami, one of the best directors left. I think it was like 2 or 3 years later they decided to put it on the next gen console on Resident Evil 2. I mean, PlayStation 2. Which was, why would you do that if that's what he wanted in the first place? He's just, why? It was kind of a heartbreaking moment that, one of my favorite directors left, but he wasn't gone for good. He's making newer other games. So, hence on that forth, Resident Evil. I loved how you played as Leon. As Mercado said, he is a special agent. Now he's going after the president's daughter because she was kidnapped. Because the whole moral about the story is that there's this other scientist, basically lord of the entire village, that wants to seek vengeance on terrorist attack against the U.S. by implanting a Las Plagas, basically the plague. It's this little virus insect. He plants it inside you, and it turns you into his do-gooding slave. Is in your blood. I love that. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it's in everybody's blood, but yes, I grew up to Resident Evil. Resident Evil is by far my bread and butter. Shih Tzu. And what I like the concept on how they got it. It was all fossilized and everything, and they just revamped it into their own parasite. That's what it was. It was a parasite. And not only was Ashley injected with it, so was Leon. Now they're fighting for time to look for the antidote, but come to find out, it was a machine that killed it.
Yep. It was like an echo electricity machine.
Yeah. Well, there was a antivirus, but that got crushed. Salazar broke it, and and there was not many characters. I mean, we had great characters that came back. Ada came back. I forgot that other Spanish guy's name. I forgot his name.
Lewis.
Yeah, he died, but he was actually pretty cool.
He went out like a G, though.
Yeah, he did. He really did.
The only downside I had about this game was Ashley.
Oh, fuck her ass.
That was a pain in the ass.
Oh my god, I couldn't stand that bit. Leon, help!
A PC modder decided to add another Ashley.
Oh, and what I loved about the game, yes, I'm a perv, I don't care, I will say it out loud. When you drop down, and then you have to catch Ashley for her to come down, because she will not, her lazy ass will not climb a fucking ladder. You have to hold your arms out, she catches you. But before I even did that, I always looked up her skirt. She had nice little white panties.
Oh my goodness.
Come on, you cannot tell me that you haven't tried to do that.
I did it with Nier Automata. And that actually gave me a trophy, which no one should really have.
But did you do it with Resident Evil 4? Don't. If you say no, you're a fucking liar.
Oh, of course I did.
Okay!
But I did it by accident. I was like, oh, let me look up and see, like, because there's certain games where the cue is where you have to look up or look in a certain direction before the prompt was there. And it wasn't showing, so I looked up, and she was just like, ew, you pervert, stop looking. I was just like, okay, you caught me.
I couldn't help it. They look so good. But, with that being said, you know, as he said, I could not stand Ashley with that whole game. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But it was such a great game, though. I'm not going to knock it. Now, we're going to go into this game really quick.
Oh. How much is this on sale for?
Code Veronica. Resident Evil Code Veronica. Now, aside from Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, this is by far one of my favorite games. I love the story. The voice acting could have been better, but the game was really good in my point of view. So before I give you my aspects, let's go with our special guest.
I This was another one I did not finish. I had it for the Dreamcast,
I had it for
and
the Dreamcast too.
I got stuck at one point. And at the time, I was actually this came out when I was young too, and this was definitely before 4. So I want to say I was probably 11, 12, and my patience at the time when I was stuck, I was just like, I don't even want to deal with this anymore. It wasn't that I was scared; it was just stuck and lost.
You are a quitter.
And I mean, for this one, I was, but I did like the fact that it was Claire. We got another character from a previous game that had made a reappearance in the series, and yes, she's still looking for her brother Chris. That was another thing that kept me involved into the game a little longer than normal. Was the fact that she's still looking for her brother and still hasn't seen him. And
Yeah.
she meets up with Steve here, and I don't know, Steve was still that 90s.
Cocky teenager.
Yeah, I was going to say dimwit, but yeah. And I think the last thing I remember was him not dying. Well, yeah, he was dying, but he was dying for these fucking 2 gold pistols, these 2 gold Lugers that he has in that picture that he uses in the game that you're actually able to get later on. But once I passed that scene, I got lost and stuck, and I stopped playing because my sister had taken her copy back to college with her.
Mm.
And then I had tried replaying it recently, and then remembering how long the game was, I was just like, do I really want to go through this at this moment?
Well, you should. It's always a fun game. And you haven't
Oh yeah.
beaten it. If it was one of the Resident Evils that you haven't beaten, you should beat it because what I'm about to say is like it's very intense for me.
Oh,
Because
I've already seen people speed run through it already.
okay,
So
so with this game, why I love this game a lot is because it's just like he said. It starts off with Claire looking for her brother Chris. She gets ransacked. Well, she gets in there. The military starts chasing her, and she gets locked up. But she pulls some John Wick shit too, which was pretty funny. Well, not John Wick. Matrix Neo. Well, basically, it's the same character that's playing. But anyway, moving forward. So both of you to your sister and you like the series too. Oh, Shitsu asked a question that does you and your sister lives the Resident Evil franchise?
yes. I think I am the reason why she got into Resident Evil, even though she is 8 years older than I am. I know that her husband was probably also playing it. They were together since high school, so I'm sure he was playing it as much as I was, and she couldn't even get away from Resident Evil, even if she tried.
Mm,
So
yeah, and I've been a fan ever since the game ever first hit the market. I've been a fan since I can't get stop thinking. There's some Resident Evils that I hate. There's some Resident Evils that I dislike, but I played all of them. So, and I own every one of them. So back to the whole concept with the Resident Evil Code Veronica. I like how they explained more about the history of the Resident Evil of the Umbrella Corporation because Umbrella didn't become Umbrella just by itself. There was actually a family that brought in a bunch of people with Oswald E. Spencer that had the Umbrella Corporation and to bring it at its top moments, and that was the Ashford family. This game explains all of that about the Ashford family on how they were falling into bad times, but then they met up with a Oswald Lee Spencer, and with their ingenuity and the money and everything, they helped support the Umbrella Corporation, and it just driven it to new heights. And then the Ashford family wanted to split away from Umbrella, but the Ashford family had much more research and everything and protection and all this other stuff. The Ashford family had it, but no money. Umbrella had the money, no research. So in this game, Wesker was sent out with his own team to retrieve research data and everything from Resident Evil Code Veronica. Wesker is in this game, and he is more badass than what he was before. they don't go into a lot of stories about him, but let's just say he was engineered to badassery. And now all of a sudden you have Steve Burnside, I believe that's his last name, Steve Burnside, that was actually not just a local that worked there because his parents did work for the Rockfell Island. He was also a prisoner as well. There were some naughty things that he did into the game, which I'm not going to go into. It's not bad or anything, but I would like the people to play it and see for themselves. He became a prisoner, just like Claire. That's why he's wearing the dog tags on the thing. He was already processed. She wasn't yet. She was in the midst of being processed until Wesker's team attacked the island with the virus, with the certain virus, and he's after a virus called Veronica. Veronica is the starting and founder of the Ashford family. Her name was Veronica. The virus was named after her. So out of all the trials and errors that the Ashford family tried to do, there was only one person that actually brought the Veronica virus where it needed to be. And unfortunately, she had to ice herself so the virus could stay within her body until it was ready to come out, which it did. And she had control over it, and it was this guy's twin sister, Ashley. What was it, Ashley? Alexia. There was Alex and Alexia. There you go. Alex and
Man,
Alexia was the last members of the Ashford family. They were the last. She froze herself. He pretended to be a cross-dresser. He was a cross-dresser. He pretended to be him and his sister. So people would think that if there was anybody spying around the house, or spying around the mansion or anything, he could dress up as his twin sister. And he just kept doing it for on years. He lost himself into it until he saw himself in the mirror and just like screamed. But that's a whole different aspect of everything. But now you have Steve Burnside, which is a very good, interesting character. You get to play with him, I think, twice within the game. And as he said, he has these set of Lugers that he would definitely trade you for a pair of submachine guns, which you do get, and that's how you progress through the story. Then it went from the Rockfell Island to Antarctica, and then poor Steve, after they fought the father of the Ashford family, poor Steve was injected with the Veronica virus, and he became a mutated thing, and he had the chance to kill Claire. Didn't do it. Now we go back into Chris's story. He just arrived on the island as everybody else escaped before the island blew up. He's going through and trying to backtrack of everything on what was going on. Come to find out, he ran into Rodrigo, and he got information that his sister was there. So now he's trying to find ways off the island to find out where she goes. He finally finds out that she's back in Antarctica, so he tracks her down there. They meet up eventually. I'm explaining too much of the story, so I think
yeah,
I
you
should just
are.
stop. So moving on forward, they finally reunite. Big happy hugs and kisses all over the place. But yes, I highly recommend Resident Evil Code Veronica X. Or Code Veronica if you have the Dreamcast. Code Veronica X didn't get its title until it was on the PlayStation 2. So now, any
Which
questions or
was
anything you want to add?
the difference between Veronica and Veronica X is actually a more updated version than the original. I believe it was a graphic and maybe some story implemented into it. But I do know that X and I think original Veronica, they're not technically 100% the same. X has a little more than Veronica did.
Yes, it does.
Nope, there's nothing else I want to add to that.
Okay. So now we're going on to... I don't know why my internet's like acting so slow. Maybe because it has like so much shit that I have.
I remember getting this game 4 days before release date.
Resident Evil 5.
I believe this game was the no, Zero came out first, but this one actually had the trading implication into it besides Outbreak. This one you can actually request an item from a teammate and they would hold it out to you.
Well, they got that concept from Outbreak.
No, I know that, but like you this was the one out of the story wise that we're going with
Yeah.
was the first one to do that. But out of the series, no, Outbreak was the first one to do it. This game, so when it came out, I didn't run through it, but I went through it pretty quickly just for the fact that I wanted to beat it before release date, and I technically did. And it was it was a good game, and a lot of people had its likes and dislikes because it was more actiony than horror.
Yeah.
I
I
did
agree.
I did like the fact that it brought back Chris. Chris is now buff and brolic, and he is punching boulders in this game. That is definitely the best part of this game. But the fact that now Chris is no longer with Stars, he's now with Biohazard against oh my god against basically Umbrella BSAA, and he started the BSAA if I'm not mistaken. Um, and he made it a global thing, and his partner was Sheva, who's there with him now as he goes to Africa to take on this threat. I like the fact that Chris is now bonding with someone else that isn't anyone that he knows, and the story between him and her and the bonding was really good. And the enemies there, it was just kind of a continuation of the Los Plagas from 4. Just wasn't known as the Los Plagas. I believe it was a more advanced version,
It was
which was known.
Ouroboros.
Yes, it was known as the Ouroboros. Um, they did bring back another character, which I'll let you explain who that is.
Okay.
Um, and it seemed of more of a revenge story than your typical Resident Evil story, because there is a lot of hate and past or history. That's what I was looking for. Hate and history in this game than there has been in others. The co-op. This game had co-op to it, and I believe it was just 2 players. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the thing about this co-op though is that it was very really difficult to try and continue and keep your calm, because once one of them died, it was game over. You had a chance to go help them, but you had 4 or 5 seconds before it was considered game over. Code Veronica is on sale right now on the PlayStation Store. It's $7.49 because I'm looking at it right now
Okay.
instead of the $15. That's on sale. Resident Evil 1 Remake is on sale, and I think the ones that they had re-released, because there is a retro sale going on the PlayStation Store. If you want to check it out there, you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to what I thought about this game. It was I enjoyed it. I not as much as the others, but I do prefer this one over certain parts in the next sequel. But I do enjoy when Capcom or when Resident Evil itself brings back characters that we had encountered in previous games. And I would like to learn more about these characters, not only in in the games, but also in books. But I also do want to like have like, all right, well, what's going on? It's been 3-4 years since we've seen this character in a game, or it's been this long since a game came out.
Yeah,
So what's going on? I kind of want to keep up to date because these characters have impacted this series so much. I do want to be updated on what's going on.
I agree. Now, my terminology for this game is that did I like Resident Evil 5? It was a good game. On a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it a 7, a hard 7. And the reason why I did that, and not just because, my boy Wesker shows up or anything like that, was because, as Mercado said, this was mainly about too much action. There was like too much, not too much action, but there was not enough puzzles to this game. And that's what Resident Evil was basically about: survival. You're surviving. You're getting through. You're trying. Obstacles will come in your way to do it. This game, however, instead of just doing some puzzles, it had very like a nice little handful of puzzles. This was mainly what he just said. It's all about hate and revenge and vengeance. That's what this game was mainly about. Uh, um, as he said, you play as a reoccurring character, Chris Redfield, and a new character, Sheva, which she had just recently joined with the BSAA and was partnered up with Chris, and they flew to I forgot what this to some point in Africa.
Kijiju or
Shinjuju.
Kijiji?
Yeah.
No, Ki Kijiji.
And to investigate a new plague that was going around. This plague was a more advanced thing that they had combined with the Las Plagas and the G virus. there was a I had it here. I don't have it anymore. But there was an algorithm that they had made, and it took a bunch of viruses that conformed and that came together and formed the Ouroboros. Yes. Now, for the game story, like I said, it was decent. The enemies, I love the enemies, especially the Manjinji women with the chainsaws. And these bitches, they did not play. They would go after your ass. Like, they would like start slicing and dicing you. They start cutting your body and whatnot. And now, as Mercado stated, was that if one of these characters dies, your game is over. And what was a cool thing about that is if you had ammo and your co-op partner didn't, you could actually, give ammo. The one bad thing about this game that I will say, the AI sucked.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Try going through that game on professional by yourself.
With the AI.
I did it.
It's a pain in the ass. I've done it. It's a pain in the ass on how bad that is. The AI really needed work in this game. If you're playing by yourself and you have your homegirl Sheva and you're expecting help, you're not going to get much out of her. I'm telling you right now. That's why it got a hardcore 7 out of me, because if the AI would have been doing its job, it could have possibly got a 9 out of me. But because of the AI problem, it got a hardcore 7. And on top of that, hardly any puzzles, wasn't much of a challenge. You actually run into an old comrade of yours, an old reoccurring player. We're just gonna put it like that, or should I just say who it is?
Go ahead.
Jill Valentine. You get to replay as Jill Valentine, but you don't play as her. Matter of fact, she's trying to kill your ass because of Wesker. And yeah. So AI was that bad. Yes, the AI in this game was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, you couldn't use your AI partner as a storage box. You give them ammo, they use all of it. You give them healing spray, one scratch on you, oh, let me heal you. All your stuff is gone by the time you try and ask for it.
It was like, I wish that you could set it to like, how do you want this character to use it? All right, I want it to use it at my most dangerous level, or when I go yellow caution, stuff like that. I wish that they can do some more that you yourself could tweak the AI on what you wanted to do, either to be a supporter, to be a fighter, to be a defender. I wish that you get the option to do that. Technically, you don't. And then on top of that, you get somewhat of a closure between Chris and Wesker. You get somewhat of a closure. Now, Wesker full was not fully immune to the Ouroboros, but because of him being a child with the special DNA that he has inside him, because he has the progenitor virus in him. Hence, we already went through that with Resident Evil 4. It was supposed to explain the Wesker children. Oswald E. Spencer, when you play one of the DLCs back in the thing where back in the mansion, I forgot what it was called.
I think it was Nightmares or something.
Mansion Nightmares. Well, yeah, we'll just go with Nightmares. And that explains a little more indifferent on between Oswald and Wesker on how Wesker killed Oswald. But with that being said, he deliberately just said, "Hey, you know what? You weren't a real child. You're not real at all. You were just an experiment." And yeah, that was it. There was 12 Wesker children. 10 died. 2 escaped. The 2 that escaped was Albert Wesker, which we all know and love, and Alex Wesker, which was a female, which is back in Resident Evil Revelations. But we're not going to cover that today. But yeah, overall, this game was good. The multiplayer and the mercenaries was pretty good as well. But if I had to change anything about this game, I would add more puzzles and have a smarter AI.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, next up, we're almost there. Yay. Resident Evil 6.
Oh boy.
Okay. Don't say it like that.
They did my boy dirty.
Okay. Now, this takes place a couple of years. Well, I think it was like 2 or 3 years after Resident Evil 5. You wanna start off?
Yeah. Yeah, as Drax said, this game takes place not too long after 5. The game itself had 3 different stories, a total of 6 different characters at first. Once you completed all the stories, you then unlocked Ada's story, which was a hidden one. But each story in the game had its own aspect. So there was Leon, and I forgot what her name is that's standing next to him.
Helena.
Was it Helena?
Yeah, Helena. It's Helena.
Okay, that's right. Because I was about to say, because the girl who talks to him in 3 is Hunnigan.
Yes.
So Leon and Helena have more of a horror aspect of the game, as to where if you were to play a different story mode, which would be Chris and Pierce, that was more actiony as if it was 5, and then you have Jake Mueller and Sherry, who makes a reappearance after all these years since Resident Evil 2, and she's an adult. That was actiony, but it was more of a challenge actiony game, because I remember dealing with that snow level with her, and that shit was annoying. So each story had its own type of part of the game. Yeah, feel for the game. Thank you.
Not a problem.
And everyone stated, when I remember when the game first came out, everyone loved Leon's section because it was more horror. And it brought back that horror feeling. But as you progressed, even in Leon's story, it was just that first few stages, and then it went to becoming action. I did like the fact that when you got to certain parts of the game, it would require another 2 players. There is a scene when you're playing as Chris and Pierce, you bump into Jake Mueller and Sherry, and you both groups, the 4 players, have to verse a boss, which was actually really cool. But after that fight, it would then bring you back to 2 players. Um, the story was all over the place. I did not like the fact that Jake was the seed of Albert Wesker and hasn't been mentioned at all until this game. I would have at least liked to know about that, unless I missed something. Um, Sherry, it was great seeing her again, and now she's more of the Rebecca, which we haven't seen in God knows how long.
Well,
And
actually, technically, she was in Vendetta.
she was in Vendetta,
CGI Vendetta. Continue.
but I mean, like, we haven't seen her in action in the
In
game.
games, yes, yes.
Yeah, and the thing that a lot of people just didn't like about it was, again, how the game was all over the place. I was upset that my boy Pierce will not be making it into any other games because, unfortunately, there is a scene in the game where, when desperate times is desperate measures, and he reacted. And
He was OP in the game. Let's just put it
he,
like that. He
he
was.
was OP, but the fact that he used a sniper rifle was the reason why I used him. I have spoken to the voice actor, and I'm actually friends with him. And I told him, I was like, look, man, if we could ever get you back into the game, if they were to ever reboot this in any way, shape, or form and bring back your character, would you play him again? He said, oh, of course. He's not upset that Capcom made that decision, but he was upset at the fact that the outcome became the outcome. I wish the story could have gone differently if Umbrella can manipulate, for example, Mr. X and Nemesis, them being programmed to do things, and this is already so far after the Raccoon City incident, there could have been some sort of way the BSAA could have saved or trained him to be who he is. Because think about Krauser. Krauser had that almost same ability as Pierce did,
Yeah, until
but
he faked his
his
own
was,
death.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's my only downside. I enjoyed the game's multiplayer concept. The AI was a lot more smarter than 5.
That's for damn sure.
I don't know about puzzles. Puzzles, there were a few puzzles, but to me they were forgettable. It seemed like there wasn't that many puzzles in this. Again, another actiony game, and that's why a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah.
Was too much action. Like, once 4 became a game, Capcom was like, all right, this game was a huge success. Let's just keep doing it now with more action, less horror, more action, less horror as every game proceeded. And the fans were just like, no, we want horror because you started off as a horror. We don't mind the change, but keep the horror higher than the action. Once the over-the-shoulder camera became a thing in the next 2 games after 4, 3 games after 4, if you want to count Operation Raccoon City, it just lost it.
I have to agree and disagree. I agree what he's saying. Um, like I said, well, like he said, these games they have their own scenarios, which they do link up in their own time. They do link up, and what was pretty, it was pretty good. It was okay, not great, not good. It was okay, I would say. Was that if you're playing and your other friend is playing, and you're at a certain point of the story, and you have 2 other people that are playing, and you meet up into the story, it could take 4 of you to take down a boss. That was a little inventive, I will say. Not great, not a multiplayer, but it is what it is.
I feel like they. I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like they took that idea from Gears of War because at
Yeah,
that time, Gears of War was a huge thing too.
which I was gonna get into that just now. Pierce and Chris Redfield. All right, you got a reoccurring character and a new character. Not much is known about Pierce, but then it goes on to be explained, and also I believe there's like little short comic prints about him. But the thing about Chris's campaign that I hated, and the only reason why I would say that I will chew it is because of Pierce. Pierce was badass. Pierce is a badass character in that campaign. Unfortunately, what happened to him really sucked, but not knowing what had happened, Pierce gave Chris Redfield, not just because he saved Chris's life, not because he gave his own life to save Chris, not because of him making the decision of transforming himself to save Chris, to injecting himself. He gave Chris closure to what happened to him in his past. He thought that he had lost all his his
Partners.
not partners in the military. You don't call them his platoon. No, not platoon.
Oh yeah, his squad. I know. Yeah,
Thank you. His squad. He and the only squad that was left was Pierce. Pierce was the only one, and he had to carry that burden around him. Like he felt like he did nothing. But then all of a sudden, when he saved Chris's life, Pierce chose because he knew what Chris had to do. He knew what Chris was. He knew what Chris had to live. That's why when he gave his own life, and he shot his final beam at that monstrosity of a monster, that right there just gave Chris closure, like he could let it all go. All thanks to a man that saved his life, that he called friend. He didn't see him as a squad. He didn't see him as a partner. He saw him as a friend and as a brother. That's what gave Chris closure. And at the end, he quit drinking. He's eating a big piece of steak. Now, what I hated about Chris, why the hell do you gotta make this guy look like he just came out of Gears of War? His campaign was mainly Gears of War. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Especially that boss fight with 4 people.
Oh my god, like, come on. Really? That's what I didn't like about Chris's campaign. It was too much Gears of War. Too much action, no puzzles, like, this is just straight up shooter. This is not survival horror. This is shooter. That's all it was. Now on to Jake Mueller and Sherry Birkin. Which I would love this because I made some of the people, I'm not gonna mention who or what company, but I just made them feel like dumbfounded. But when I was at with Jake Mueller and Sherry Birkin, like Mercado said, there was not enough information on Jake Mueller because of he wasn't mentioned at all throughout the past. But what Capcom had an ingenuity of doing, because Wesker was such a high commodity character that people loved, like myself, they wanted to give something to reminisce to Wesker. So they made a child. A lot of people were confused about it. But if you go and you collect these little blue, teal, turquoise emblems and you shoot them, they're actually files. And if you collect them all, they actually explain what had happened on how Jake Mueller became into Resident Evil 6. Which I did, and I will say this to you, Mercado. His mother was infatuated with Albert at the time before Albert set off to becoming a scientist. They met, they had a wonderful relationship, and then all of a sudden one night he just up and disappeared.
Oh, he went for a pack of smokes and never returned.
Precisely, I guess you could say. So, all of a sudden, she was pregnant with Jake. Years went by, he had to quit school because his mom was diagnosed with, I believe it was cancer or a tumor.
Yeah.
And he dropped out of school. He was working. He was help supporting his mom. He became, more of a person on the streets and whatnot. Now, in also the files, he has never been sick. He has never been with a cold, nothing. He never knew why. And for some type of reason, with his blood, um, people were always after him. Come to find out, when his files went out that Wesker did have a son, people were chasing after him. Now, on comes to this lovely young woman. We all may known her from Resident Evil 2. Sherry's all grown up. She got titties, she got hips, she got weight. No, I'm only kidding. But come to find out, she has something very special with her blood as well. Technically, because they did save her from the G virus, not all the G virus has exudated out of her body. She could still recover. She could still heal on her own if she doesn't take that much of a not too much damage. She can take life-threatening damage, yes, but if there's too much damage, multiple contusions, then yeah, she can't recharge that fast. But she can regenerate. Come to find out, in Sherry and Jake's campaign, there's this thing. I forgot what his name is. He's after Jake because the Neo Umbrella wants Jake because of his blood. Because now there's a new virus in Resident Evil 6 called the C virus, hence Cocoon. And the Cocoon actually, brings out these people that looks like insects and stuff like that. Very, very, very disturbing shit. But now, before I get into more of that, when I was at a GameCon, people from Capcom were there. And they were talking about this game. So I simply asked them. I was afraid that somebody might have got this question, but nobody ever understood this part. Why did they put Jake Mueller and Sherry Birkin together? So, come to find out, I went up there and I asked that question. I was just like, do you find it kind of ironic? Why would you put Sherry Birkin and Jake Mueller together in any form? Or is there a meaning or an Easter egg behind it? Because I think I already cracked that code. So, and then one of the representatives goes, well, we wanted to bring back Sherry Birkin, and we wanted to make sure that Wesker was not totally forgotten, even though that he did die in the volcano. But we don't know. Maybe in the future he will come back. We don't know yet. So we just decided that we give a nice little spin on bringing back Jake. And I just simply told him, so you couldn't put him like with Leon or something? Like, no, we thought that it was more befitting to be put with Sherry. And I asked why. They're like, well, each character was a reoccurring character from past Resident Evil games, and we each wanted to give them a new character. So then I sat there and I was just like, oh, so it has no ties to William Birkin or Albert Wesker being best friends throughout the entire Resident Evil series, that you would put their children together. And everybody looked at me like, ooh, oh, with all these comments. And I'm like, because I found out that that's what's the reason why. But if you're saying that, you're just telling me that it was thought outside of the box that you would do something like that, not admitting or knowing that you put the children of the best friends together. And then the guy goes, well, we kind of did form that aspect. Stuttered hard as hell. And then I'm like, but you just said that you didn't even think outside of the box on that. It's like, well, we wanted to keep them surprised and everything. I'm just like, but what is the ironic that you would do that and not knowing the fact that there were the bloods of the highest scientists of Umbrella? Nothing.
Caught them with their pants down.
Yeah, exactly. That's how deep I run with Capcom, with Resident Evil. So, after saying that, they had no words. They were like, well, that's a very interesting question. We just wanted to bring that all out there. Yada, yada, yada. And I'm just like, alright, well, whatever. Goodbye. So I walked that away. And then all of a sudden, Now with Leon and Helena, I have respect for Jake and Sherry's campaign. I love their campaign. I love how you're being chased. It basically gives you that tyrant feel, that nemesis feel. I
Oh
love
yeah.
that part. That's
Yep.
that's that's why I have a lot of respect for that campaign. It was a little Resident Evil to me. It's just not Resident Evil because there was no puzzles. Again, it was action shooter. But I love how Jake just goes up and doesn't give two flying fucks and goes in and just starts wailing on enemies with his fist combinations. But now with um, Leon and Helena, their campaign was by far the best because it had Resident Evil in it, but it wasn't entire Resident Evil. Again, hardly no puzzles, just straight action. Um, it starts off with Leon is trying to protect all the president and everything, and he had to shoot not just the president but his best friend. He shot the president of the United States, killing him. Eventually, they all run into each other. Leon runs into Chris. Leon runs into Jake. Jake runs into Chris. Which I think by far that was the best fucking scene aside from the fight between Chris and Leon. That was a huge intense moment, and your boy Pierce. You know, I'm glad that he held back.
I'm sorry. Do I know you? You look familiar. Nah, I don't know what about you, Jarheads. Yo, Pierce is ready to kick the shit out of him.
I don't know. That would be a fight. I will say this. I don't know who would win in that fight because Jake came from the streets and he has martial arts experience. But so does Pierce, but he didn't come from the streets. He came from Jarhead clan.
Oh yeah.
And that would be a fight. Two young guys going at it with each other. That'd be a fight. I would say. I can't choose who's gonna win that fight. Don't ask me. But
I think Jake would still win that one just because of his genetics.
yeah, possibly. But remember his body wasn't enhanced yet. I mean, he did take the C viral drug, but it did nothing because his blood rejects all that stuff. His blood is basically, as Clara said, it's royalty.
Yeah.
Because Wesker put so much shit inside him that it all counteracted and he became a supreme being. Jake, however, has untainted blood. So, with that being said, all was unraveled between Jake and Chris, and it was just like that epic scene was like by far the best. He's like, "Oh, so you knew him? You look and act like your father. Oh, so you knew him?" He's like, "Yeah, and I'm also the one that killed him." And then he calls your boy a pup.
Yeah.
He's like, "You better put a leash on that pup." That shit was funny. So all of a sudden, moving on forward, they finally get now. Jake has his closure that what his father really was because when he was captured with Sherry, uh, they took blood samples from him, blood samples of Sherry, and come to find out he got a little more information about his father when he was in Japan at the facility where he was captured, and then towards the end you have the the crossface between him and Chris just completely said, "Yeah, I knew your father. I killed him." He's like, then he had the gun to his face. Jake replies, "Uh, was it business or was it personal?" And what Chris said to him was the best answer. It was both. It was business that he had to look for Wesker and kill him, and because of the shit that he went through with Wesker, he had no choice but to kill him. So it brought closure to Jake as well. Basically, this game wasn't just about vengeance how Resident Evil 5 was. Resident Evil 6, what people don't understand, this was about closure to all the
God.
characters.
I'm sorry. We got to get this logo off the screen. I can't stare at the 6 anymore.
Oh, okay. Here, I'll give you a better logo. Well, I think I know. I think I know why.
Yeah, you know exactly
Yeah.
why.
Let's see. Here, that's a better logo. That's better. There you go. And
Yeah.
now, all of a sudden, if you complete all the scenes, you get Ada. Now, Ada's campaign was short-lived, but Ada's campaign throughout all the other people's campaign was more Resident Evil. Why? It had puzzles, it had action, it had survival horror. It had all three elements in
Yeah.
just her campaign. Now, to retort to your question, Mikado, that if Capcom can they bring back Pierce? The answer to that question, yes. Here's why. Just like they did with Ada, they could
Oh
do
yeah,
with
Happy
Wesker.
Birthday Ada tape.
Exactly. They could do with Wesker, and they could do with Pierce. Ada was cloned to be Clara,
Yeah.
and she was raised by Umbrella, taught all this stuff, so she doesn't have the mentality of Ada, but she has the mentality of Ada's traits, but not her memories. However, they could do the same thing with Pierce if they want, and they could bring back Albert Wesker if they want. Hence, why do you think they collected his blood? So, that's my justification. So, on a scale of 1 to 10 with Resident Evil 6, this also gets a 7 in my book as well.
Yeah.
Moving on. We're almost done. The game that finally brought back Resident Evil. Where should we begin with this one?
The demo.
Yes. The demo.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, let's say the demo was this. Okay, so what made this game? And I'm not too sure because I was talking to someone about this. This game became the way it was after PT was released, and my friend had stated that we don't know if someone from Konami had seen what Capcom was doing, if this was, excuse me, supposed to be how the game originally was, a first person aspect of the game. And Konami was just like, well, let's do a Silent Hill version of it. And that's why it was canceled and never brought back up again. That's just a theory. The thing about this game, though, it is not the first time Resident Evil has ever done a first person game. There has been one prior to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you played as, I think, a scientist or someone from Umbrella. This game, however, with the graphics that we have at when the game came out and today, which is the Resident Evil engine, and the way that they did the lighting and had all of this going is what made this game the way it was. Very horror, very scary, and the things you did in the demo as it progressed, there wasn't one demo. It's not called the Midnight version. There's previous versions of this demo that have audio from certain characters that didn't make an appearance in the game, but are a part of the story. I remember going through the first part of the first demo, getting near the end and picking up that phone and hearing a very recognizable voice, which made me extremely excited for this game and when it came out. As the game progressed in demo wise, they then took out that person's voice and changed it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
But that character still remained in the game, just never spoke to, only read files about. The fact that I almost called Capcom Umbrella. The fact Capcom had done that had made me love this game a whole lot more. Again, its previous characters that we haven't seen or heard of in a while is the best thing these guys can do. Now, when they had stated that this game was going to be in VR, that won me over even more
Yes,
and
it
had me
did.
go out and get a VR headset for this game.
I dropped over $900 on just this game because I bought the PS4 Pro.
Oh yeah.
The No, I'm a liar. The PS4 Pro was 500, 5, 6, 7, 8,
The
9,
VR
10,
was 200,
$1,100. I spent $1,100 on this game, and I'll go into that reason after.
Um, but yeah, playing this game, I enjoyed it a lot. You are playing a completely new character. Um, and the background story to him, which
Ethan
you have to,
Winters.
yeah, he was Ethan Winters, which you have to play. I mean, I caught it the first time, and it was actually stated by his girlfriend, fiance, who you're looking for, who was Mia. She states a comment when you are fighting her. What are you hiding, Ethan? What do you have to hide? And when you get to the end of the game, you kind of you realize who he works for, and that would be Umbrella. And what I love about this game is the horror. It's not only just scary, the jump scares are there. You have uh, an antagonist character that is chasing you throughout this house majority of the game. And not only that, you do have other parts of this house where shit still comes at you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not your zombies that you're used to seeing. This is a whole new virus. Not only is it uh, a mold with this virus, you're also dealing with insects, which was something I truly missed from Resident Evil 2 and was there one in 3? I guess you'd consider that worm in the OG 3.
Well,
And
before I let you continue, I'll explain about that virus. This virus was combined with the Uroboros and the C virus. It was combined, which made this new strand.
yes, that actually explains why the two boss fights and how um end they end the way that they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Um but again, why this game was what it was, well, again, first person horror, and this is what brought back everyone to Resident Evil was the main key, and that was horror. If no one has ever played this, I recommend playing it. Don't do it in VR if you are motion sickness,
I love doing it in VR.
or if you can't even play it, watch someone play it. Not someone speed run it because they'll glitch their way through a certain part and jump through a whole part of the game. Someone who's actually playing the game, watch them play it. This is nothing like any other Resident Evil I had played before.
I have to agree with Mercado on that. This what brought me faith back for me for Resident Evil because after some god awful Resident Evils that Capcom had created, ever since they lost the the main guy that created Resident Evil, Resident Evil 7, or known as Resident Evil Biohazard 7, was a fresh start of something new, inventive, but Resident Evil concept. This thing had a lot of puzzles in it, which I really loved. Had enemies, bosses. Now, typically with Resident Evil, you be fighting like, zombies or monsters that are plagued and whatnot. But no, you're fighting a family. Just a family that are fucking annoying and badass at the same time.
I'll be right back. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah. That are very annoying and awesome at the same time. This was a huge step up. And now with the whole remakes that came out, it kind of died down. But now with the next game coming out, which we are going to go to next after Resident Evil 7, the VR was a beautiful touch to the Resident Evil franchise. I have just bought the Resident Evil VR, the collector's edition that comes with the music box house. That I spent about a little, close about $200. The VR, I got the bundle edition, which was about $400. And I got the PlayStation 4 Pro all at the same day when this game was launched and released. I bought it all. Picked them all up because the PSVR you would have to buy a special component to hook it up to the PlayStation 4, the regular. But I was just like, fuck it. I want more high def. I want 1080p. I'm buying this. And I did. I got my 1080p PlayStation 4 Pro with the VR, with the game. And I have to say, it's, in my point of view, if you don't get motion sickness or bad lighting, or you have seizures and whatnot, I wouldn't recommend you playing with the VR. I would say just play it on your screen. But with me, the VR just made everything a lot more better because I'm able to peek around corners. You can't do that without the VR. I'm able to have a steady aim on where I'm shooting with the VR. You can't do that on the game because you have to move everything with the analog. My eyes on the VR was the analog. So wherever I'm looking, that's where I was aiming. That's what I love about it. They took their time and the ingenuity into this game and they perfected it. On a scale of 1 to 10, this game really, really gets a good 9.5 to 10 from me. The story was amazing. How it all transitioned. The boss that you expected was a certain individual was never that boss. It was someone else. And it would all transition. Now, I have my girlfriend. She hates and despises horror games because there was something that happened, which we're not going to go into details, but she was traumatized. So now she doesn't want to fully get back into horror, but she wants to bear it a little bit. So I'm tiptoeing her into horror field, and I told her that I wouldn't mind if she played horror games with me, but I wouldn't recommend her playing this game because this game has a lot of pop-up scares, a lot of graphics, a lot of not just graphics like the way it looks, but graphic like fucked up situations. It was just very, 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 very bad. I think she would be okay playing it without the VR, but with the VR, I wouldn't recommend it for her because she would get terrified. But as a great sport, I told her I just wanted her to look through the VR where there's no enemies, no bosses. She looked and everything was just so real. It looked so lifelike. Like you can reach out and try to grab the pen. There looked like that there was an actual pen there. That's how intuitive that Capcom was when they put the love and heart into this game. So I don't know if Mercado was back. Mercado? Nope, he's still taking the winky. So, with that being said, this game gets a lot of praises from me. The ingenuity, everything that went into this game was awesome and simply amazing. I wished, in a way, I kind of wish that the remakes had VR in it, but they don't. I wish the remakes wasn't as bad. I mean, you gave us a top pinnacle of Resident Evil, and then with the remakes, you had Resident Evil 2 here. Resident Evil 3 went all the way down.
Yeah,
but,
it did.
Oh, you're back.
Yes.
So I was explaining on how the VR really looked. Like it looked all lifelike. Like it wasn't all pixelated or box looking. This really looked like there was a pen there. You can actually look behind the pen. You could read the words. You can actually try to pick it up. Everything was so lifelike when you have the VR. If anything, the only time I can ever play this game again is with the VR. I don't like playing it on just a screen. I like playing on VR because you could do so much more. Like you could look behind, like I said, you could look behind corners. You could look down to see where little knickknacks are and whatnot. So it's recommended getting this game with the VR. You don't have to get the VR, but it's recommended that you should if you're not photosensitivity or
motion sickness.
Or motion sickness. There you go. So what would you give this game on a scale of 1 to 10?
I give it 8.5. And the thing that kind of that I don't, not saying I'm hating the game, something that I just don't find realistically was the blocking mechanic. The fact that you have these creatures with sharp claws hitting you and you can just block it.
Actually, no, it still does damage.
It does damage, but you can still block it instead of him at least getting stunned and pushed back. You could just take the block and then keep going forward.
Well, they
That's
had to make it a little more realistic. That's what the game was based about. So honestly, that's one thing I will disagree with you. I think the blocking mechanic was good. Yeah, just because you get staggered and whatnot, um, that's basically real life. You're telling me you go around and this big ass dude that's like 7'5" and you're like 5 foot punches you. You're not gonna fall back.
oh, you do fall back. I'm saying like the other, for example, the I guess the mold zombies, the mold creatures. When they hit you, it's not as much as a stagger than I would have thought it would be.
Well, they're 5 times stronger than an average human. Of course, you're gonna stagger. I thought it was ingenuitive. That's why I was just like, all right, let me avoid this. Let me try running around there. So let me go this way and that way, or let them hit first and then I'll fucking go. Like if they hit a swing and a miss, I'll just run beside them. It's basically like a speed run, like Mr. X. You wait for him to throw that first punch so you can run around him because it takes time for him to cock another fist. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Same thing with Resident Evil 7 with those mold zombies. I let them throw something and then I just get out the way and then as soon as they're trying to like stand right back up to get their balance, I run right past them. At least this one you get a block. You block Mr. X, you're gonna fucking stagger, possibly fall.
Yeah.
Then you gotta get your ass up and then what's not stopping him of punching you on the damn ground? So that's where I guess we differ from that. I actually still like that mechanic. But like I said, I gave this game a 9.5. I would give this game a 9.5. So, now, last but not least, there's not much to say about this game yet, but we can give what we believe is going on. Hmm. Yeah, I'll just put this one up. It's great. Resident Evil Village. Henceforth, Resident Evil 8. How would you like to start this?
Um. Well, after seeing the trailers, I thought it was Van Helsing instead of Resident Evil. Um.
I kind of have to agree with you on that. It would look a little more like Van Helsing and whatnot, but oh, I did the whole thing with the trailer, but I'll get your take on first before I say mine.
The game itself, it's good to be in first person again. I guess this is a route they're gonna take. Maybe if they do another one after this, they might possibly do it just to keep the horror factor up. The fact that it is trying to be kind of like 4 with a merchant being in the game and you actually going through a village up to a castle, which the same thing you did in Resident Evil 4. Um, it was actually really good to have that kind of vibe come back to it. The fact that Chris Redfield is making a reappearance into the game is also good, and it's not the same Chris Redfield that was in 7. Um, this, however, feels off because Chris wouldn't do that, the scene that he had done in the trailer, and I'm thinking something is slightly
Amiss.
off. Yeah, something is definitely amiss. And I'm excited for this game, though. I'm excited to, well, excited in a different way for this game to be played because I don't think I'll be scared throughout this entire game. I mean, I might be scared, but I might be feeling some other way rather than scared. How did this guy say it on Saturday Night Live? Well, there you have it. I'm scared and horny. Um, the three the three vampire chicks that chase you, it's that I don't know, man. I might just give in to them extremely quick. Just say, come take me. The other chick though, the tall vampire chick, if that's what she is,
Let's just call her Miss D because one, she got the double D's. Two, she looks like she needs a D. And three, her name begins with D. It's just like
the
Dimitriini,
domain or something like that.
Dimitriini, something like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You talk. I'll find the name. Go ahead. Continue.
I don't know what Capcom was thinking, and I think this is why they had even made that statement about a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that they didn't want people taking their characters and putting them in certain situations. Dominatrix, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's basically what's going on in
All
this
right.
game.
Before you continue, her name is Lady Dimitrescu. Dimitrescu.
Still, Lady Dominatrix.
Okay, continue.
Um, she,
I'll put the name on it.
her, I still need to understand her character. I know exactly what she is, and I'm not going to say it because I've already seen the demo. Um, but I think this game has a lot going for it, and I honestly can't wait to be back playing as Ethan, which Capcom still decides to hide his face, even though we have video footage of people modding the PC version, um, playing it in locked camera angles or over the shoulder third person. It just doesn't make sense why they would do it. I mean, I would like to at least walk up to a mirror and be able to see his face if if you still wanted to keep it in first person. Um, this story though, I'm excited for, and I'm ready to hop back into the VR headset and play this game.
I am so happy that they announced that this game was going to be VR compatibility. And I got the PS5 version, the collector's edition. I dropped that fucking $240 on that bitch. Well, $253 because I got the same day shipping. So I should have it the day that it is released by GameStop. That's the only way, but however, to get your collector's edition. If you want the collector's edition, if they still have it, they have, the last I checked, they have it for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. The PlayStation 5 and the Series X has been all sold out. They sold out within less than 30 minutes. Less than 30 minutes they sold out. I was able to procure one. Yes. Go me. Anyway, at the picture that you're seeing is the lady that Mercado was just describing as well. The lady in the white dress, she's like, this girl ain't 7 feet. This girl like 10 feet tall. This like her lady part is staring me in the face. Let's just put it like that. And then she has her 3 daughters that she so-called says that they are daughters. They could be vampires. They could be vampiresses. We don't know because we don't have any information on them. We did see that this takes within a Victorian era. An era. Not error. Sorry. Era. That's why a lot of people, including myself and Mercado, we thought that this was like some Van Helsing shit. But it's a new twist. And this is where I think that they got this concept from, was that it went from a poor state house to something more elegant and rich. So they're giving us different versions.
Yeah.
So I think that's outside of the box. Yes, does it have a Van Helsing feel? Of course. But into the Victorian era, It was always cold, snowy, the Transylvania, Romania, things like that. It was more of an elaborate Victorian era, and that's where they wanted to get the concept. That's where I feel like they wanted to get the concept. So they had to have everything Victorian, which is very understandable now. Now I get the whole concept why they did that, and why now I could look at it as its own game and not as like a Van Helsing. Now if I see a guy coming out with fucking two pistols, a cross, and saying the prayer, then I'd be like, all right, this is Van Helsing. Let's move. I would agree. I would just be like, yeah, I was so pissed off. Now, I haven't played the demo Maiden. There is a game called The Maiden where you get a taste and experience on the game. I will let Mercado take over on that because I haven't played it yet. And please try not to spoil it. Just talk about your whole things about it.
So the demo that you play, if you have a PS5, it's only for the PS5 at the moment. It will be releasing out on the Xbox Series X, One, and PS4 at a later date. It's called the was it the Medane, the
Maiden?
Madame, Maiden. So there is no combat. It is basically as if you're playing Outlast. If you get spotted, you got to run. You can take a little bit of damage, but you can't attack back. Um, the story, the demo, however, it was very eerie. It was very spooky, and it gave you it had a few puzzles in there. But I think what they wanted in this demo was people to actually see what it's like to even be in there just for a few moments. And
Give
I
you a
want to
little
say
sample, a taste.
exactly a taste of what it is. And the if you were to speed run it, the 10 minutes you run through this demo, it is it's definitely going to be a hell of a ride when you're playing this game. It's very detailed. The footsteps were on point when you walked from stone floor to wood floor to carpeted floor. You hear everything. I found that very, very cool. The details on the stairs were amazing. The chandelier looked as if it was real. And being able to examine almost everything in that house, I am just ready to get my hands on this and play it.
Um,
Now I can't go into much detail about it anymore because it will be spoiling. But the fact that they start you off in the dungeon and you work your way into the house itself was very eerie from beginning to end.
yeah. When I watched the trailer, if you haven't seen it, it's on my YouTube channel. I had seen the trailer with a another streamer by the name of Mo Chocolate 9K. Um, it was a little disappointing that it was only like 22 minutes long. I thought it was gonna be maybe like 45 minutes to an hour. I would have been okay with that, but no, this was like about 22 minutes, and hopefully that they would mention other games. But unfortunately, they didn't. They did show some gameplay to it, which I actually really can't get my hands on it. Can't wait to get my hands on it. But I refused to play the demo. Now, what I'm getting from Mercado is that this does show what it looks like, but this is not the story at all. Has nothing to tie with the story. It's not the character. You play as a character called the Maiden. That's it. That's all you know about the character. There's no fighting, there's no guns, there's no elaborate way. Basically, it was just like the Resident Evil 7 Homecoming. They gave you a taste, but you saw the characters. You played as Ethan, and that's what kind of killed it a little bit for me with that demo, with the Resident Evil 7 demo. However, with this demo, I'm hearing that the Maiden is not Ethan Winters. This is another prisoner, and they just wanted to give you a sample and a taste. So, I can't rate this game, but from what I've seen and from what I hear and from what Mercado said about Chris, I think these three situations are what I'm thinking that it is. I think it's not Chris at all. I think it's a clone. Two is that I think something happened to Chris. He's infected in some way, and he's being manipulated into doing dirty deeds in order to get what he needs done. Or three, he's forced in doing all this.
Yeah.
And it could be Wesker posing as Chris. Could be. But those are my three things. He has something, he caught something, maybe a virus or plague or something that we don't know about yet, and he's looking for the antidote or whatnot. And he has to go through certain trials and errors in order to get it done. What the heck is going on my stream? Sorry. He's looking for trials and errors on getting it done. However, he is a traitor. But I don't think that he is a traitor. I think there's something else he's going through. Or he's a clone. Those are basically four things. Basically, those are the four things what I'm thinking about what's going on with Chris. But that's what I love right now about Capcom. They're making you use your mind. Like with, it just had nothing to do with the Capcom. I mean, with Resident Evil. But Devil May Cry was supposed to be Resident Evil, but it wasn't anymore. It was supposed to be Resident Evil 2, but they decided to be its own game, and that's how Devil May Cry came to be. It was supposed to be a Resident Evil game, but it's not. It's its own game now, which I'm gladly happy for. But with Devil May Cry 5, how they gave you a story and gave you like little tastes of what's this, what's that, what's that, what's this. I believe they're doing the same thing with Village. And if they are, I will definitely be hand clapping to that. So, we are right now finally done. I want to give some honorable mentions on great Resident Evil games. You name one, Merc, and then I'll name another.
Well, I enjoyed the Outbreaks, but if it was out of, we're going through all of them or the ones that we
Not all of
spoke
them,
of.
just ones that you actually really like.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Outbreak series 1 and 2.
I
Uh,
enjoyed Outbreak File 2 more than 1 because they did fix all the little stuff and they
yes,
gave us bosses.
yes, they did.
Um,
Uh, yeah, here you go.
I would have to go with Resident Evil Gaiden. I actually enjoyed playing that game. It was a step up from what Leon was going through, but instead of it just not being Leon, it was a clone.
My next one would probably be OG3.
Well,
Resident.
we already covered
Yeah, we already
OG.
went over
Yeah,
that.
games that's not
All right,
mentioned
that
here.
hasn't been mentioned. See here, there was. I mean, we already went over Dark Chronicles a little bit, but Dark Chronicles was good.
I agree. I love Dark Chronicles. I liked Umbrella Chronicles, but Dark Chronicles took it for me. Another game that I would love to mention and put out there was for the DS Dead Aim because it was a Resident Evil that game that you actually had to use your pixel sticks in order to fight the fucking enemy and shit and to be first person and then you get to choose if you want to play fixed camera angles or first person, which I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, that one. I actually didn't play that one. I played the actual Resident Evil 1 remake for the DS, which don't play multiplayer on that. It was a disappointment.
I could
Cuz
tell.
like when I thought of like running like a ran into the same room with the other player, it was just a player 2 icon. There was no sprite at all. It was kind of disappointing. But I mean, it was a good handheld version of it. Um
My go. I would have to go to Revelations 2. Resident Evil Revelations 2. I liked 1, but 2 gave me more insight on each character, and they brought back a lot more characters as well.
So 2 was the only one I played. I didn't play Revelations 1. 1, it was on a boat, and 2, 1 also was a DS port if you were to even play it on a different console.
Yeah.
2, however, I I enjoyed because it was Claire, it brought back Barry. I guess it involved his daughter, which I didn't care much about because she was literally like
Ashley.
not Ashley. I
I'm
was gonna
kidding.
say
I'm
more of like
kidding.
a clock tower type of persona where she didn't do much. She would hold the flashlight, and then
Yeah.
Barry had to deal with the little girl that was able to see the invisible creatures.
Yeah.
Um, I did like the fact that it talked more about Alex and her ability.
And how it described on the Alex, because as we all well and known, why I love uh Resident Evil Revelations 2 is because this one actually described a little more detail about Alex Wesker. So because she was one of the 2 children that escaped Spencer Mansion. The only one that went back was Albert Wesker, because he's Albert Wesker.
Yeah.
But yeah, uh, I don't think there's any other games, because
I don't-
there's some games that I don't want to fucking mention.
yeah. And I want to say the other ones were like, again, OG PlayStation that was either a rail shooter or, like I had mentioned before, was it Survivor that was
Yeah,
a rail shooter?
Survivor.
And then there was the other one that
Dang,
was the other first person game that you
dang.
walked around. Yeah.
Um, and I agree with all the other titles. The reason why I don't want to mention or bring up again Operation Raccoon City or that god awful Umbrella Chronicles, because no, not Umbrella Chronicles. My
Umbrella
mistake.
Corpse.
Umbrella Corps. Yeah, they just need to stay dead. Yes,
Oh
please.
yeah, Resistance. We don't talk about either.
Yeah. Oh no, no. Resistance was eh. I gave it
It
a
had a
4.
cool concept,
Yeah, I gave it a 4.
but yeah, but everyone wanted an Outbreak. That's not an
Yeah.
Outbreak. It has Outbreak aspects, but it's no Outbreak.
No, it's. I don't think nothing will ever touch Outbreak. Outbreak needs a game, and it needs a game bad.
Yeah,
So
and Reverse, no, nah, nope, no,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. I mean, I have to get it because I pre-ordered it, but I don't have to download it. I don't have to download it, if anything. But
I've seen people beta test it already. That's all you need to see, and you'll see the disappointment.
yeah. So, with that being said, everybody, I want to thank M3rcad0 for taking the time. We've been at this for 3 hours, 3 hours and 5 minutes, talking about our whole Resident Evil concept. M3rcad0, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, man. So, you can definitely check this out. Please go follow him on his Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram account. And if you are that type of person that you love to speedrun, he's a moderate speedrunner. He speedrun, as you said. What do you speedrun again?
Resident Evil 2 remake, and once in a while Resident Evil 3 remake.
Yep. So check him out. So with that said, being everybody, take care, be safe, live free, game hard, or it's game over. See you soon on Devil May Cry 5. Peace.